and hardware for all the ballroom doors, and that'll include RFID locks, which will allow us to better control people coming in and out. And from an energy efficiency standpoint, we're going to install new LED lighting throughout the entire conference center. So actually, that should have a return on an investment over a couple of years, I would guess, maybe even a little bit less. The conference center, as you all know, the hotel revenues are not shared with the conference center, and the conference center revenues are not shared with the hotel.
And I just made for just a little bit of background if we have folks who are not familiar. Of course, the conference center is owned jointly between the City of Franklin and Williamson County. We here at the staff of the City of Franklin, we serve as the day-to-day contact for these types of operations at the conference center on behalf of the operating group. So we on a staff level probably have a deep understanding of what's going on with the facility, just simply because in our role we are tasked with working with their staff when there are budget items that are to be purchased or capital improvements. But certainly we do, and we also do, of course, manage the audit process on the conference center, which you hear from every year at the same time that the auditors come and present the city's audit. So that's just a little bit of background about our role. And of course, Chartwell owns the hotel, and then through the operating agreement, they are, by agreement, they are the operator then of the conference center on our behalf.
Yep, thank you. So to talk about expenses and how there's a shared line between expenses, the administrative and general, people like myself, and our engineering department, some of our accounting staff, is a splitted percentage of total revenue. Generally, that will be 70% on the hotel and 30% on the conference center for the annual. The sales team, our sales managers who bring in the large conferences that have a shared piece where they use the conference center for food and beverage, and then they use the hotel for guest rooms. Those are split 50-50. And then the catering and event management that consists of a director of catering, event planning managers, and their admin or their support team is 100% paid for by the conference center, because all of the business that they bring in is 100% conference center. Food and beverage is also a split percentage of food and beverage revenues. So like the kitchen staff, Andy, for instance, and the rest of the support staff for food and beverage is split. So to talk about a 3-year financial summary, going back to fiscal year 2018, the conference center generated revenues of about $7.47 million, and their net income was approximately $817,000. In fiscal year 2019, our actualization plus forecast is predicted to be at $7.64 million, which is down about $42,000 to current budget. Still up from prior year, but down a little bit to budget. The net income is forecasted at $834,000, which is $29,000 over budget. So while we didn't bring in all the revenue, we were able to control expenses to the positive and still beat budget on the profitability side. For 2020 fiscal year, we're budgeting $7.99 million in revenue, which is about 4.3 or 4.4% over prior year. And our net income is budgeted at $874,000, which is about 4.8% over prior year. This nets out to 10.94% profitability on the revenues. So just a little bit of an overview of what is impacting, or what we fight on a daily basis to try and generate more revenue and more profitability in the hotel and conference center. Right now, there's no new revenue generators entering the market. A lot of the same people are still here. Hopefully that changes down the road as office complexes are built and new companies come in. But a lot of that supply is, a lot of those companies are going downtown, obviously. But the supply has consequently increased and will continue to increase further with additional hotel rooms planned. I think, we're going to see the Hilton Curio here downtown open up. We're going to see the Hyatt House open up, Spring Hill Suites, and so forth. New hotels in Franklin and Nashville are providing direct competition that we had not previously experienced. According to Hotel Horizons, which are the experts in this field, they do the analysis, and They have said that the Metro Nashville hotel market is forecasted less than 1% increase in occupancy year over year for 2018 to 19. So demand is still outpacing the growth. The demand is still outpacing the growth of the inventory, but we're going to probably see that change, I would think, in the next year or two. Hopefully not, but we'll see. The national forecast for upper upscale market is actually a negative 1% growth in RevPAR, which stands for revenue per available room. And that's important because those rooms are what drive the conference center business. In 2020, with a 0.7% increase in demand, so nationally, inventory is going to finally outpace the demand, is what they're saying. The Nashville market is still strong, though, so I think that we're going to still be okay compared to the national. Another thing that affects us is the additional freestanding events and venues in the Franklin and Williamson and Rutherford County. Places like Saddlewood Farms, the Quarry, and other independent venues that take that social business like weddings and, galas and things like that. So things that are impacting our fiscal year expenses. I think everybody sees the news all the time, which is great that our unemployment rate is so low, but it is one of the lowest in the nation. This really makes it hard for us to find employees, and then that drives the average wage up. And when we don't have enough employees, it causes overtime. So we struggle with that on a daily basis. Also, the Marriott and Starwood merger. So all of those Starwood hotels, like the Westin downtown, the Sheraton Music City, the Sheraton at the Capitol, those all have substantial meeting space. And so we are fighting now with those people that are, hungry for points through their Marriott rewards programs, or Bonvoy as they call it now. I think you've all seen those commercials. There's a lot more competition in that arena for us. Our A&G payroll is actually going down $11,000 next year. We've made a change where we used to have a controller, director of finance, you might call that person. We've switched to an accounting manager, a little bit lesser role, a little lesser salary, and some of the pieces of that accounting are being pushed off into the Chartwell corporate offices. So an $11,000 savings there. As far as the A&G and other expenses, we're going to be there. We also had a relocation of a Davidson GM in 2018. I did not relocate from anywhere. I relocated from Murfreesboro. So I didn't cost anything to come over here.
If I can just mention on his last bullet, the way we interpreted the difference in the structure between the last owner and the current owner was that Crow actually contracted with Davidson to manage their properties. It was a contractor, whereas Chartwell manages in-house. So
right, they own and manage. Correct.
So there's that is, as we look at it, the difference in the management structure.
That's correct. Yep. And we're a little tighter.
a little closer to home too. So
yeah.
across the street practically.
Yep. All right, and then going back to the last, I think that's the last slide. The overall employee benefits. Right now, we're going to show an increase of $53,000. The Chartwell benefit plans are being reviewed, and we anticipate offering enhanced hourly benefit options in January 2020. And that's, at this point in time, with the unemployment rate the way it is, it's the cost of doing business to try and get good employees and offer better benefits. We did sign a new contract with a new audiovisual company called PSAV. They're a national company. With that contract, we got a bigger slice of the pie. And this is all conference center. The hotel doesn't have anything to do with this. We just negotiated the contracts. So our revenue share went from 43% and 45% to 50% that we get, and then the expenses are a lot lower. There's a few other pieces that they're going to do for us that were outsourced before, like things like hanging lights into the rafters. Those are very expensive things that were done by a third party, where this PSAV will handle that from here on out. We'll make more money from that. Our sales payroll is going to go up $32,000. And that increase is simply due to open positions and maternity leave. We had a 12-week maternity leave during that period, and the open positions are now filled. So we don't anticipate, or we don't hope, we hope to have those full-time the entire year. If not, then obviously that'll go down a little bit. Repairs and maintenance and payroll, and the payroll and the maintenance portion of it is going up $8,300. The entire year, fiscal year 2019, we've had an open position. So that was about a $32,000 position. We anticipate having that filled. But what we've also done is the chief engineer is now doing dual properties. So we're splitting that person's salary with another hotel and our hotel, which gives savings to the conference center. So if we had that, I guess to make it clear, if we had that position filled the entire year, our net savings in engineering would have been about $25,000. Does that make sense? Okay. Laundry and dry cleaning and dishwasher supplies is going to go up about $16,000, and it's simply a factor of having a different contract than the previous management company. They had an exclusive contract. We're unable to get that. I think in the future we're going to work towards something like that, but right now we just don't have the buying power. So that's where we're at. We're still profitable. We're still showing an increase, even though there's a lot more supply in the market.
Any questions from the committee?
I guess it goes back to my question, it's just, you're profitable, but it's still hard for us to know compared to what? Do we have any comparables for other 1,100 person conference centers? What are they generating on an annual basis? I mean, an $800,000 net income is good, it's a $4 million asset, it's a $30 million asset. I mean, what's our, since we don't know what our return on investment is, it's kind of hard for us to tell.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can't give you off the top of my head comparisons because I've always run where I didn't have a split. You know, I've always run a hotel conference center as one. So I can tell you that, you know, the food and beverage business is tough on a standalone. It's real tough. And, you know, you're talking to restaurateurs or catering people. Yeah, and we're holding our own, thankfully. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed with all the hard work with the sales team. We're going to continue to do that.
I guess if I may respond, I look at the perspective of my colleagues who work for governments who are, typically it's not necessarily a shared facility with another government like we share with Williamson County, but I talk to my colleagues and they are just, they can't believe that we're not having to put general tax dollars into supporting the facility. I talk to my colleagues across the state who manage facilities, and they have to actually allocate annual operating revenues to help support the operations. And of course, ours doesn't have, we don't have any city debt on it as well. So many places not only have to help pay the operations because they can't break even, but they have debt service, payments as well. So it is very difficult to find the comparables, but many of the governmental comparables do require subsidies. And as Michael O reports to us, we don't have to do subsidies, and that's something that it seems an anomaly in the governmentally owned conference center world.
I'm sure this property is appreciated since we bought it. So that's probably something else that's on our balance sheet. Eventually, surprisingly, we own it. It's probably appreciated over the however many years we've owned it.
Right. Well, I mean, we record. Our governmental accounting standards. We actually record the value of the property when it was purchased. So, we don't have to actually record it. We do. We don't have. That's not our standard for the purchase of the land, because of course this land was purchased at a price many years ago, back in the 90s, and so we know there is appreciation, but we do follow the standard of putting that on the value for what we paid for a long time ago. But certainly we are in a long-term agreement with our current operator, and really until that agreement is closer to the end, it's a little bit of a long-term discussion. The city administrator may have a.
That's basically it. Yeah.
The other thing, though, since we have paid off all the debt, anything we get out of it is extra money for us, as opposed to the people that you're talking about that have to subsidize all the time. So, as I say, that's happened very seldom, as I recall, in the entire.
I believe there's just been 1 year.
That's right.
That in total.
That they've had to subsidize, and all the other years we have gained some money from it. And that, now that we're not having to pay off the debt service anymore, that is all extra for the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, to Scott's point, though, the city has several $1 million invested. I mean, we did this in the 90s, so if you had that, to your point, if you had that, you're drawing interest on that, so, Pearl,
No, I just wanna make sure that, the new hotels.
Are you on? Are you on?
No, I'm not.
Thank you.
The new hotels, both in Franklin and in the general area of Nashville, has provided this direct competition that we have not experienced. The key word here is we haven't experienced it, but we knew it was coming, correct? And that's the key, is that we should have always, last 4 or 5 years, anticipate this renewed competition. And what are some things we need to do to counter that? Because I think that's where the rubber will meet the road, is we're gonna have this increased competition. What are we doing to, or what can we do to make sure we can stay viable in that more competitive market? In other words, anticipate, not just all of a sudden let it hit us and say, oh, we got competition. Like, we knew this was coming at least 4 years ago. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I can only speak to, our sales team is hard at work every single day, and we're looking at every piece of business throughout the city, and if it can fit into our facility, we're going after it. The advantage that we have, at least this is my opinion, the pieces that are going downtown that can fit into our facility, we have a strong chance of stealing those because of the congestion downtown, the parking situations, just the high cost of doing business downtown. So that gives us an advantage. The other thing is, when I came from the Embassy Suites in Murfreesboro, and we've taken a lot of business from there, particularly some of the association business. We just actually booked a very large piece of business that was going there for the last couple of years, and then another piece that we have a verbal commitment, but it has to go through the state. And there's a lot of state association. So, I mean, we're very proactive in all of that. I can say that we're restricted by size sometimes, just by the size of the facility. That's the only thing holding us back.
The marketing and the positive, the parking, less traffic, close to the interstate, those kinds of things.
Well, and,
So,
and there's so much to do around here. I mean,
You're right.
we've got a great walk or short drive score too, so
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Yeah, one other piece I would just mention is we're seeing a portion of it in terms of the profitability and what we share with the county. Remember, it also is generating sales tax and hotel tax that is additional revenue to us, and a 300-room hotel of this quality, and the nature of activity there does generate some other revenue streams for us that we don't always capture in just this one component, that may not be as you may not see with other uses at a site like that. So it is unique that it has been so consistently positive in terms of a revenue source to the city. It is a changing market, and we're pleased that we have a partner that is mindful of that, very engaged in the market, very knowledgeable of the market, and aggressive in pursuing the kind of business as you heard Matthew talk about. So that would be the only other piece I would add to the discussion.
thank you, and my only other comment would be, don't cut out any trees to expand the parking lot.
That is your parking lot, so we won't.
Especially cherry blossom trees,
Thank you all for your time.
all right?
And I bet you're all sold out that weekend too, right?
We're sold out just about everything. Near term, it's very busy, so.
Thank you.
Item 3, budget presentation for transit fund. Maybe you guys are up.
Aren't we? Yes, it's good to be here. Hello, everybody. Well, here we are again. I missed this last year, so told some folks earlier, I've never been so glad to be at a budget meeting in my whole life. So here we go. We'll walk you through our presentation. As Franklin grows, we grow. You know, we try to continue to meet that need and expand and revise our services, as you all are aware of, and obviously so value that opportunity and work diligently with the Franklin Transit Authority, whose leadership is why we're here, and it's tremendous. So the purpose of the Franklin Transit Authority has what it's always been: to connect people and places by providing efficient, safe, and affordable transportation options. Our responsibilities include the planning, operations, and management of the small urban public transit service that serves Franklin. We operate 6 days a week, and we have the fixed routes, and we also have the TOD service. The TMA is a contractor of record to operate and manage this service. We are recognized as a regional leader in customizing innovative multimodal transportation solutions for Franklin and the region. Highlights that this year we bring forth to you is, as you know, 16 months ago, we expanded the fixed route. We are now seeing the benefits of that. We have had increased ridership due to that, 7.5%, and that's just in the fixed routes. We have increased employer partners and improved customer service with the changes we made by adding 100+ stops. We've increased our frequency, as you all know. We moved the hub to the Franklin Transit Center, which was a huge bonus. And because it has the amenities and it's open, the lobby's open on Saturday, and so that's built a little community there. Obviously, like I said, it's increased access to jobs and services in Cool Springs. That has been huge. Because of that, we've established a wonderful partnership with Columbia State Community College on the Williamson County campus. We developed a program with them where the students ride for free. They show their ID, they ride for free, and that has been a win-win for both because they're limited on space, land, and so we've been able to get those students back and forth from their homes and jobs to campus. This year, at the leadership of the Franklin Transit Authority, we are offering free rides to our veterans and our active military, and the response from that has been overwhelming. And so that was definitely something that was a good thing. This upcoming year, we continue to build, and this is what we'll be concentrating on, is our transit technology acquisition that we've been talking about. We introduced it some last year, and now it will be in the forefront this year. It continues. We're going to have add to the service a live tracking mobile technology, which is an app. And also with that will come updated transit software. We are working with the City of Franklin, and we're so excited on the signalization for our vehicles. And so where those different routes in the City of Franklin that will have signalization, we are working with you guys to have the equipment on board the vehicles that will enable that. So we will be, of course, the emergency vehicles will be first, but then we'll be in a tier underneath that. And so that will make a huge difference for us because it does us no good to be stuck in the same traffic as everybody else. TMA, this is outside of transit, but it will benefit transit tremendously. We have secured a $2 million park and ride grant, and that will definitely benefit our area, and especially the work along with the Southern Corridor study. It will be a companion to that. TMA and Franklin Transit are key stakeholders in the South Corridor study. So just wanted to mention that. And then something that TMA is bringing to transit this year at no cost to transit or to the City of Franklin is digital transportation message boards that we will be putting up in different key locations, especially along Cool Springs. We're going to have some downtown, but it will not only tell this goes together with our mobile app. It'll tell you what's going on as far as when the next bus is coming, all like that. But also for our out-of-town guests, we were talking about folks coming in and using the Marriott and all the different wonderful events we have here. But, folks that are coming from Nashville, they need to know what Nashville's information is. So we're going to have this connection, the regional bus transits that go back and forth that RTA provide, that information will be on there. So as the services grow, those will be reflected. So that is on, we want to have a technology corridor for Franklin that is exceptional, and that has to do with transit, and that benefits employers and employees and citizens alike. So those are some things. We've had 80,314 passenger trips, which, like I said, it's up 7.5% system-wide. So we're very excited about that. What do we do? What are those trips composed of? People getting back and forth to work, to medical appointments, education, and social activities. 55% of our ridership are people getting back and forth to work. And that is a very solid number, and it's rewarding to see that. But people do use us daily for that. 20% of our trips are student trips. Not only now have we added to the Columbia State Community College component, but one of our fixed routes is on Franklin High School's route, the other's on Centennial's High School route. Williamson County Schools invest $20,000 annually with us to buy tickets for these students. They use this program in their school to work program for those students who will not go on to college, but will go right immediately into the workforce. And so transit's how transits are going to be their wheel, so that's really exciting. 10% medical trips, 10% city events. We do the shuttles for like Dickens and Pilgrimage and Main Street, which is coming up, and all those wonderful events. And then 5% are social shopping. In spite of the growth, in addition to the growth of the fixed route service, Todd is thriving. I mean, it continues to thrive, and it's very robust for a service our size, so that continues to meet a need. Our organizational chart, what I will say about this is our staff, administrative, and the drivers continue to be the best asset our organization has. They are just phenomenal. Budget notes. We'll kind of walk you through that. TMA brings to the table $1,314,000 in federal and state grant funding. It's 55% of the budget. In addition to that, we bring another 13% of additional sources of revenue for a total of 68% of the budget. The city's portion that we have proposed in this budget is 32% of our budget. So the operational general fund request in our budget is the same as it was last year of the $931,421. The planning budget portion is $137,500, which was the same as last year. The city's percentage of that is 10%, which would be the $13,750. The capital budget this year is up a little bit this year, but let me explain why. We have to replace two transit vehicles. We were talking about the added technology component, the signalization equipment for the buses, to work with the city on that. Hardware, software, we're adding 4 shelters that we desperately need, especially along our Cool Springs corridor, which is now really thriving. And security cameras for our fleet facility, where our employees and our transit employees and our equipment live. And then other technology equipment such as dashboards, counters, announcement systems, that kind of, it's all technology stuff. Stanton, this is his happy spot, so he could explain that more. I will mention that we do plan to sell a couple of pieces of we do plan to sell a couple of vehicles, not a couple of pieces of vehicles. But I was like, wait a minute, that's not going to sound right. And so when we do that this next fiscal year, that will be added, as far as income back into the budget. So our total ask is, our total City of Franklin request, including the budget, the planning, the capital, is $3,371. Our expenses are split between federal, state, and local. Our capital expenditures are an 80-10-10 split, 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local. Planning is the same, an 80-10-10, and preventative maintenance, which is a part of our budget is a 80% and 80%, 20% split. We've mentioned the technology component. We are really excited about that. I will share with you, we moved into the Cool Springs area, and that has made a tremendous bit difference. Some of the top employers that we've added to our list of folks that we take to back and forth every day to jobs are the IRS in Cool Springs, Nissan headquarters, NHC, the Holiday Inn, Galleria Mall, Walmart, and then a very large list of restaurants, and then Publix. Those are all employers that are using us now that we're in Cool Springs. And so that is, that's great. That's great. Let's see, I think, you know, to us, it is really important, this technology corridor for transit. I think this is something that has been the missing link. We needed to expand the service, and then this was the next step. And so we are excited about that. Do you want to add anything?
Unless you got questions.
Any questions from the committee? Scott?
So I do think this is a great thing that we have for the city of Franklin. And big fan of the Holly Trolley too. That was
you.
a favorite event every year. I guess the
glad.
questions I do get from constituents is they'll notice maybe that, you know, the trolleys aren't full all the time. And I guess if you look at the federal, state, and city funding,
Sure.
are there ways that we're going to get to where maybe we can lower that cost per ride? Because right now it looks fairly expensive, and so is this still the best use of our tax dollars, I guess? And I think obviously the Cool Springs corridor is probably going to help with the ridership, and again, I think it's a great thing for the students, the medical trips, the people that don't have cars. So,
And that's very true, Scott. I mean, you will hear me say time and time again, transit is not for everybody, but for those that use it, it's everything, because it's their quality of life, it's the way they get to work, those dollars come back. Interesting statistic is put out by APTA, which is American Public Transportation Association. For every $4 a municipality puts into for every $1 municipality puts into transit, $4 are returned in economic, dollars. And so we tried TMA as operator manager. Like I said, we're bringing basically 68% of the budget to the table. And we work very, very hard throughout the year to make that number even larger. And so that in turn will obviously lowers what we ask for the city. Do you want to add something to
Yeah, I
that?
think just to help answer those questions.
Push your button, yeah.
You're pressing my buttons. And we've had some folks come in, and we'll try to spend the time. If you ever have somebody comes up from your constituency that wants to talk, it's easy for us to sit down with them. But the planning department did an excellent job of kind of a planning exercise where the citizens came in, and it was really easy to get a read on the local citizens. What they wanted most was a very mobility-free city, a place they can walk, a place they can ride their bikes, a place they could, get from one area to another. So transit sometimes gets put into a category all by itself, but it really isn't. It's a part of the mobility issue for different folks and how they can get around and make a choice. So, I mean, at the last time we spoke with somebody, everybody loves sidewalks. I mean, we need sidewalks, right? Everybody needs sidewalks. And the one person had a very similar question. I said, well, did you like that sidewalk you got put in or that's proposed? They said, yeah, we love it. I said, do you think you'll ever go there and count how many people are going to walk that sidewalk on a daily basis to see if it's getting used properly? And, he got my point. I wasn't trying to be smart with him. It's just that's part of how we develop a city that has good mobility so that no matter what the person, because some of our folks can't walk, some of our folks can't ride a bike, some can't drive, and some have a choice, and that's what we really are building for with the transit. And to be as efficient as we can and bring new alternatives to let them use whatever they want to do to get around the city. So that's how we kind of respond to it.
A couple of comments regarding your technology, because all the young folks now walking around with cell phones, and they want to see when the next thing is coming through or whatever. So this technology that you were talking about, then I can walk out this door here and I can look and say, okay, at some corner, a bus gonna be coming through at X time.
Exactly.
And you'll be able to see it like a little Uber or a little Lyft, like a little car or something be, okay.
Yeah, you'll have the.
How far away is that technology being active?
So we're under contract right now to, my anticipation is it'll be about a 45 to 60-day process, give me 60, to have that all, functioning under the current transit system. And then we're under conversations, she was mentioning the video boards, as those go into corporate centers. The concept is that whether it's local transit, whether it's commuter transit through Williamson County TMA van pool, RTA buses, whatever kind of mobility that we can either statically put into the systems or have live feeds, that the employees at these large employment centers can see that they have other ways to get around not only the corridor but get into work, which is the key ultimately for leaving people's cars at home. They got to feel like they can get around. So that be in place, I would say, probably by July. So that's coming. And then we also in discussions with other, what I would call digital transit kind of leaders in the country that we're looking at pilot projects potentially for the following year. It would be kind of like a digital Uber transit service where people could kind of have exactly that feel for they can order a vehicle up. Those would be things we'd bring, of course, to the authority and make sure they're okay with us moving forward. But that's what we envision in the next year and a half or so going into Carruthers.
And secondly, the transit hub there off the main drag there looks like a transit hub now. You see people out and waiting for the bus to come, and that's creating interest and excitement, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you all been able to manage that lobby pretty good, no issues in that, and that's important when you think of people gathering together and waiting for transit.
That's a public space, and the public is enjoying it and using it as it was meant to be used.
And do they use the bath, they can use the
Oh,
bathroom there,
yeah,
it's open to the public?
absolutely.
Okay.
Then
Just want to make
there's
sure,
Oh, yeah.
because we don't want people coming,
amenities,
so we.
no, they
yeah.
can, when the lobby is open, all of that's available to them.
Until
So
what
the
time?
entire public can use, that's open for
Yeah, it's
all
a
We
public?
always looking for toilets.
I'm looking at Alderman Martin when I say that.
The
We
lobby,
always like more public restrooms. so.
yes, we have two, one for each gender, so, but
Remind me
yes.
of the age where you can ride on your own. Is it 12 or 14?
It's 12.
12, all right.
Yeah.
Get them on that bus.
Yes, and in the summer months, we have a tweens and teens special, so they ride for half price. Say what a deal.
Great.
There you go.
Swing through Forest Crossing.
Thank
Any
you
other
all.
questions from the committee?
One quick question, and I don't know if you have a direct statistics on this, but 7.5% growth in your passenger trips.
Right.
That's great. Up within that growth, how much of that happened on the fixed rate versus Todd? Do you have a sense of that?
Todd has, oh, go ahead, Stan.
Yeah, so actually, what we put into place and the strategy to put into place was to kind of keep Todd at the same, keep it level, and it actually came down about 3%.
Okay.
And so the growth is in the fixed routes.
So all this growth is in the fixed route?
Fixed routes, and then, we probably are going to separate this from here on out, but sometimes, depending on the weather, some of these numbers that are in there are also what we do with our service for the festivals. So, if the weather's good, we have a great year. If the weather stinks, we have a horrible year. So we're going to separate that out. But I can tell you this.
Not so good last year.
Over the last 3 months, we've had over 20% increase year to year just on the fixed routes. So if you look at some of the statistics, I know we're not the biggest, but if you look at the statistics of what's happening in Clarksville or Murfreesboro or Nashville or RTA, you'll either see flat or negative. So for us to show substantial 3 months in a row, 20% increases, that means that it's taken a while, but the folks are learning that this is a much better system for them to get around.
That speaks to the changes that were made
Correct.
in the nature
Totally
of
on that.
the timeliness and the arrangement of the route.
And to show 20% increases in winter months, even though you're comparing them to last year, that's good. I mean, we've had some cold days and some rainy days and things like that, so.
And we were interested, Eric, to see that dynamic with Todd, because we thought, well, will this just totally tank Todd? But, you know, it did take a little dip, but it still is thriving. It's holding its own, and you know, it still continues to meet a demographic. But yes, these changes and expansion are, we're seeing the benefit of that expense and investment now.
If no other, Ann?
Since you mentioned Todd, some time ago, I heard people saying that they, you know, were trying to get Todd for medical appointments and everything, and it was really hard to schedule. I haven't heard from them lately, so I just wonder, is that a problem?
Well, go ahead.
I would say Todd is at a premium. We actually average right about 3 hours, 3 people per hour pick up on Todd, which nationwide, that's a really good number. Most are averaging about 2. And they have to plan ahead. I think the people that are struggling is the people that have at the last minute kind of wait to make a call, almost as if we're a taxi. And we try to direct them to the fixed routes because most of the places that they're going, they can get there unless they really have an issue where they can't walk. And we really do, I think, a pretty good job of trying to work with them. But you are going to have times on the transportation on demand. It's just that it's open to the general public, so people who call and book it, and you know, it's hard to pick up 3 people. I think our average time on the Todd vehicle is about 26 minutes. Most of these folks are going across town, so you can do the math. Picking up 3 people, getting across town, and dropping them off, and doing it in 26 minutes is pretty good in Franklin. So that's just part of the restriction. Our decision would be, as we grow, is do you want to grow the Todd, or the authority's decision, which, you know, just costs more money to put more vehicles on the road.
Right now, we probably run between 4 or 5 vehicles on the Todd service. So.
But they're still the regular vehicles, right?
Right.
Yeah, so your strategy
Because a lot of
is-
places have a smaller,
Yeah, we're the only city in all of Middle Tennessee that offers a demand response. Nobody else does it, not even Nashville. I mean, they'll do it for ADA. That's picking up people off the fixed routes, but we'll go throughout the city picking up anybody that we can get on board. So I think we're the only city in Middle Tennessee that does that.
You know, I dropped my car off, but I need to get to work, so can you come pick me up?
well, also, it used to be that like Mid-Cumberland also had some things, but are they servicing anything in Franklin anymore?
They service the county, you know, and so if their riders are in the county and they need to come into Franklin for services, then they do take care of those folks. But as far as servicing daily within the county, I mean, within the city, they do not.
Thank
So,
you.
and mainly it's medical for them, and they can
Exactly, yeah.
cross county. So for folks that might need to get to the
Go
VA hospital, for example, they can
Good
pick
point.
them up in Franklin and cross over into Davidson County and drop the folks.
That's true.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right,
We
thank you. It's
appreciate
good
it
to
very
see you.
much.
Thank you.
Next item, law presentation. Or the presentation by the law department, either one.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay. So our presentation is on the PowerPoint now. I want to introduce my staff, if I can take a second. Shauna Billingsley, City Attorney. Tiffany Pope is their Staff Attorney. Melda Kincaid is our paralegal, and then Ellen is the legal assistant. You guys know that, but we're on television and not everyone else does, so I thought that would be great. So the law department provides the legal advice needed to the board, the mayor, directors, and any other city staff that might need assistance. We also, beyond providing legal assistance and research for our staff, we also litigate any cases that come before the city or that we feel like maybe we need to be proactive and file a lawsuit. So in 2018 and 2019, the law department completed the following: 73 ordinances, 102 resolutions, 275 contracts, 1,257 separate research or drafting requests, and we closed 84 litigation files. The next page is our organizational chart, and we kind of talked about our staff. The next page is a list of the staff titles that we have in the law department and their pay grade. We are currently absent one staff member, but we hope to fill that position soon, maybe in the next few weeks. And on slide 6, the law department's budget has remained pretty consistent since our inception in 2006. We are tasked with providing training to elected officials and city staff, but in order to do that, we have to get trained ourselves. So these attorneys do have to attend international municipal law conferences from time to time, as well as Tennessee municipal conferences from time to time. In our budget, we also have a line item for consultant services, and that line item is solely at this point for the city's lobbyist that we hired last year, and has been an extreme help, I think, over the past few months, and I think they'll continue to be of significant help over the next few years. On the last page is our program enhancement. This is the first time the law department's ever submitted enhancement request, and the request is for a copier. We have quite a bit of litigation, and with litigation comes discovery. So we are copying a lot. We like to go paperless. For the most part, we are paperless, but law firms other than ours are not, and they like to see their documents in paper. So sometimes we do have to utilize the printer, and that can be banker's boxes worth of documents. We will, when that happens, we take the admin printer and we use it pretty much all day or for several days at a time. And because a lot of those documents are confidential, we have to stand there and wait on them so we can take them back. So it would be more convenient and probably helpful if we could have a printer in our own office, printer copier. That is our presentation. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them, or for any of our staff as well.
Any questions from the committee?
So my one question, I saw where a lot of maybe the outside counsel that we're having to use a certain period of time, I'm guessing, are you getting close to where maybe requesting another staff attorney could make sense? Because at the amount of some of those, we saw some of the hourly rates, the outside billable rates, we may be getting 300 to 400 hours worth of Bass, Berry and Sims or Waller versus maybe 2,000 hours from a staff attorney.
That is, as the city grows and as the city departments grow, eventually that will maybe something I'd have to talk to Eric about. Having another staff attorney could be helpful, especially in the growth of our department. Meaning that if you start as a staff attorney, there's really no, like, you know how engineering has an engineering 1, engineer 2. We only have a staff attorney, so it could be helpful in the future to have like a staff attorney 1 and a staff attorney 2. So after you've had some experience, you could move into that position.
And one of the things we always balance is workload, but also sometimes we need certain expertise that we don't have in whatever size staff, and to bring that in helps us too. So it's a balance. Shauna is always at the center of managing both what our internal staff does, but what we contract out for assistance. And, I think she does a really good job of aligning what we have versus what we need to bring in to help us with that. But as she said, as we have more demands, and there's a lot of support that this relatively small team provides for all the departments across the organization, that'll always be something we need to look at. So.
But the expertise.
Yeah, that's always
That's true.
key point.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, budget presentation, planning and sustainability. Emily, you're up.
It's me. Hi, I'm Emily. As you know, I'm the Director of Department of Planning and Sustainability, and unlike Shauna, I couldn't convince any of my staff to come because they said they were too busy. So just lots of meetings and working on the zoning ordinance. I really enjoyed at BOMA the other night hearing how much we needed to update the zoning ordinance from all the board members. So just so you know, we are working on that. We should see something in the next month. So the purpose of our department, we strive to protect and enhance the built and natural environment by providing a comprehensive vision for future growth, protection of historic and natural resources, and of course, planning services for businesses and residents of Franklin. As you know, we work with the Planning Commission to identify and complete long-range initiatives. We process annexation requests and lots of current development applications at this time in order to continue quality growth. And then we provide assistance to a myriad of different commissions, not only Historic Zoning Commission and the Franklin Civil War Historical Commission, but also the very essential Board of Zoning Appeals and Sustainability Commission, as well as the occasional ad hoc task force and things like that. Our organizational chart is the same as it's been over the last couple of years. If you have any questions about that, I'll be happy to answer. We do have a newly appointed assistant director, Kelly Dannenfelser, who's been with us for since 2003. So she has recently moved into that position, and we are have an internal posting up for filling her previous position of long-range supervisor. We do soon. Yes, Josh King has announced that he's going to Gallatin to be the assistant city planner. So we will be working on getting a posting for that. But since the long-range supervisor is internal, we anticipate having another planner position open as well. So we kind of like to fill those around the same time. So in terms of personnel, we do have a slight increase of about 4% over fiscal year 19. Looks like this is mainly due to medical premiums for our employees, but no major budget changes related to personnel, no additional staff at this time, just trying to fill all of our vacancies. In terms of operations, we're actually down a little. This is mainly due to the bulk of the consultant services we had in fiscal year 19 related to the zoning ordinance. We do anticipate having some additional consultant fees into fiscal year 20, but they are much less than what we've had in 19. At least that's what we anticipate. So again, in our base budget, just continued consultant services. We do anticipate, as there's a rollover from Granicus to Board Docs, having some computer tablet upgrades for the planning commissioners who review all of the plans electronically and have been for several years. They haven't had any upgrades in their iPad technology since we rolled over to a digital system. And then a continued emphasis on continuing professional education for our planners. We do have state requirements that we are required to meet in terms of hours of continuing education we have to have, and all of our planners, with the exception of one entry-level planner, are required to be certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. We all have continuing education credits associated with that as well. And it just enhances our job performance in general to provide you very quality planning services. No base budget requests related to capital. And then we have 2 program enhancements proposed for fiscal year 20. One thing you will see that's not in this list is something related to 3D modeling. We have had that request in the last couple of years, and it's something we're still tossing around and thinking about, but as we're going through the zoning ordinance, we're finding that actually when we have triggers that require developers to provide us a 3D model, when they hit a certain amount of triggers for a size project or a certain location of an infill project or something like that, it's something that's more easily accommodated through their architectural services that they're already providing, and we can still get the same information without necessarily using city resources to do that. I am going to a conference in July with Esri GIS. They also have additional 3D modeling capabilities that they didn't used to have. So I'm going to be speaking with other municipalities about how they look into 3D modeling and provide those services for their cities. So while you don't see something this year, it's not something that has fallen off the radar. We're just looking into it more.
And the opportunity for something that works more directly with our GIS, we think could be more promising. It's emerging now, and so that's something that Emily is going to get to look at. And I think IT folks are looking at that with you as well. So I think that's something we will continue to explore, and I think something that integrates more with what we already work with as in GIS could be most promising. So that's why we're taking a harder look at that as that emerges as an option.
Definitely.
The GIS is really very, very helpful in many respects.
Yeah,
And-
we have a
and-
great GIS.
Yes, we do.
We do. And we're really working to make some improvements. One thing I'll put in a plug for that you will be seeing soon is that we're working on a current development and approved development map so that can go out live. Metro Nashville has one, and it
Interesting.
shows where every recently approved or proposed development is and in what status it is in the review timeline. So if a citizen said that, I saw a sign for something near me, I'm interested, or I saw it 6 months ago, I want to know where it's at in the process, they can pull up the map, go to it, they can pull up where it's at in that, if it's been approved or if it's pending, if has a public hearing coming up, and then they'll have a link to pull up the plans too if they want to get that information. So that's something we've really been working on with GIS, specifically Amy Woods in GIS. She's been so helpful. So we're excited to roll that out here in the next few months.
That sounds very, very good. Thank you.
So our first program enhancement request is related to consultant services for a historic preservation plan update. Our preservation plan was it was created in 2001, identified the goals related to historic preservation and strategies to accomplish those goals. It's been nearly 20 years and we have not had an update to the plan. So that is our first priority in terms of program enhancements for fiscal year 20. We do want to be really careful about the timing of the rollout of that plan and make sure it's not overlapping with the zoning ordinance approval process though. So we still are looking into how the timing will work out with that. But that's definitely a top priority for us, if not specifically in fiscal year 20, definitely in fiscal year 21.
Historic preservation consultant, the other night we heard about the historic district, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So how will this person or this mindset here connects with the historic districts?
Definitely. So what this actual planning process does is we reach out to the community to see what the goals in terms of historic preservation really are, what they would like to accomplish in our historic district. So it really sets those goals first, and then we go through and think through the strategies we would have to meet those goals. For example, the Hinchyville District National Register listing update provides us the tools we need to know how that plays into our preservation plan, because it depicts the limits of the Hinchyville National Register District and what structures contribute to that district. So we know who specifically lives in the district, what property owners to speak to. Not that everybody in Franklin isn't, interested in historic preservation, but those property owners that are directly impacted are definitely a top key stakeholder in that process. But that information from the National Register listing update informs the preservation plan, perhaps of what we need to do strategically to either grow the historic district over time as more structures are contributing, or maybe we've actually lost some structures that have adapted over time and have lost their historic significance. So it goes both ways and informs us during that preservation plan process.
Good. Just want to make sure the two are in sync.
Yes, definitely. So that first program enhancement request is for $30,000 we anticipate. And then the second program enhancement request we have is a continuing education trip for our departmental review team, the DRT. So 3 years ago, we were graciously awarded some money through the budget process to go to the greater Atlanta area, specifically Alpharetta and some other suburbs of Atlanta, to see how they handle their development review processes and some of the things that they're dealing with in terms of growth and how we can learn from them on certain aspects. It was a really beneficial trip, meaningful trip for our entire DRT staff. And in fact, if I haven't shown you, we do have a video. I didn't want to take your time today. It's about 5 to 10 minutes, but we have a video that communications staff put together that summarizes the trip, shows you how much we learned. But it would be great, now that it has been a little over 3 years, to follow up and do a similar trip. And some of the specific topics we want to address and learn from other communities would be related to stormwater management, infill and growth pressure, aging infrastructure, and how to have plans in place that periodically update that over time, changing transportation trends, which following Franklin Transit and TMA, as they just presented, we are seeing changes and shifts depending on where dwelling units are being added and the needs of our citizens. As well as what we always continue to look at as quality design standards. So we've kind of narrowed this down to a few different municipalities at this point. So Georgetown, Texas is one of the places we've looked at. They have been ranked as the 6th fastest growing city in recent years. They are a more wealthy suburb of Austin, Texas, and there are a lot of parallels. They do have an aging infrastructure plan in place. And they also have similar growth statistics as Franklin does, so we see a lot of parallels there. We've also looked at the greater Louisville area as being a closer alternative, and they have looked at some increasing tree canopy preservation, which is something we are struggling with here in the city. There's a lot of, I will say, feedback from the development community that our standards might be a little higher than they should be in terms of tree canopy retention. I think that that's something that has long time been an asset of Franklin, and I don't think that's something we would ever want to necessarily lower. But speaking to another municipality about that specific issue could be really beneficial, as well as they have a, what is it called? It's a fee in lieu of stormwater management, and it kind of helps with how they do more regional strategies for stormwater management instead of on a site-by-site basis, which is a different kind of principle that we don't see everywhere, but Austin, Texas has done that as well. So we haven't narrowed down the location specifically, but we have a couple of alternatives, and the range of how much money we have to fund that trip would probably dictate which location we go to as well. So we're looking at a range between $16,000 and $25,000 for 22 departmental representatives.
And so this isn't just the planning department. This is folks from all the folks that are involved in the development review. So you've got building and neighborhood services, you've got engineering and stormwater, you've got fire department, you've got a wide variety of folks that consistently work together in reviewing development plans that come through our process. So this is a good thing to do as a team as well.
I'll definitely mention that we meet a lot together, but we always meet talking about specific plans that have been submitted in Franklin, and we don't always take the time, because it's difficult to find, to speak about overarching principles and how we would really like our standards to be in an ideal situation that we can then apply to development as it comes in. And this type of trip really grants us that opportunity to have about 2 days to focus in on those things and really nail down, okay, when we have a development come in, what is it we're looking for and why, and how can we all work together to reach consensus so that we're not sitting around the table debating, every time a development comes in. And that really saves us so much time and gets us all on the same page. So just in conclusion, you know, it's a very busy time. You see all the development plans coming through, and I know you're well aware of that. But we're continuing to focus on that managed growth and wise annexation practices, having a long-term vibrant economy, and how we can have development standards that ensure that that is achieved. Making sure there's housing choices and quality of place for the residents of Franklin as well as incoming citizens and residents. And then really looking at how our regional transportation system and local mobility work together, because we do see that as a continuing trend that we're going to need to address. Clearly, the new zoning ordinance is still our top priority. Working very heavily on that, and then after that initiative's done, we'll be bringing to you a list of long-range planning initiatives that we would like you to help us prioritize, and one of those would include the preservation plan update. We're very happy with our group of talented professional planners, and we hope you are too, and we look forward to a lot of intense discussions coming up on that zoning ordinance.
What is the plan to kind of bring us up to speed and educate us once that goes live?
Yes, so we are currently nailing down our meeting schedule with the consultant, but by the end of May, you will have the draft of the zoning ordinance between the middle and end of May. We are in crunch mode right now, finishing up the little details of the draft with the consultant. We just have a few topics we're still trying to resolve, just a small handful. But we are nailing down what our public rollout outreach will be in terms of, you probably heard some of it at Planapalooza, but there will be what our consultant calls a road show. We'll go to different groups, different neighborhoods, that kind of thing, take the zoning ordinance out into those groups to hit on a couple topics. And we'll also have open staff hours published, where if a citizen gets a notification letter saying, you know, there's a change proposed with your zoning as part of this update, we'd love for you to come in, talk to us, answer your questions about it. We will have staff designated in conference spaces across City Hall, or even potentially in locations closer to, if we know there's a targeted area, we may even send them out into the community to be closer. But they'll be available for questions for a full week, for instance, to take walk-ins. And then we are currently working on setting up a couple of mini workshops with the BOMA and the Planning Commission. And we are trying to nail down a couple potential dates with the zoning consultant, and I anticipate you'll get an email from Eric in about 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll poll your availability for that.
I appreciated your comment about areas that would be rezoned, because I do remember whenever we did the last zoning ordinance, there was really blanket rezoning of an awful lot of places,
Yes.
and people did not even know it.
We're being very strategic and making sure we make all note all the places that are changing, and we're reaching out individually to property owners that are impacted by phone call where we think it is a significant change before the draft is even finalized, if possible, if not immediately following that draft release. And then other areas where it's more of a minor change, we're sending out notification letters and even holding neighborhood meetings, things like that, so that everybody can be well aware and educated on what the changes are before we get into any type of approval process.
And also, I heard you just say something about meetings and everything. Summer is really a tough time to have people attend a lot of meetings.
We're being very conscious of that and trying to not overburden the summer schedule. I do anticipate that we're going to try to have a couple of these 2 mini work session or workshops with the board and planning commission in June, if we can. But we will be polling availability, of course, and then there would probably be at least a month of no meetings, and then we'd pick back up. The public outreach meetings, we're still trying to identify the best time of the year. But again, we don't anticipate a quick approval on this. We remember how it went before. We don't want it to go into that long of a time frame.
Like years.
Right. But we do anticipate having the rest of 2019 being a time to educate, take questions, make revisions to the draft as needed. So we are aware that it's not going to be a quick turnaround necessarily. We want you to have time to get comfortable with it before we bring it forward for a vote.
And truly in the summer, not just us, but a lot of people will have commitments
It's true.
already, and
Yes.
already for things in the summer. And so that
Definitely.
makes it, that, as I say, summer's not a great time to have a lot of meetings.
Sure. And we'll definitely take that into account. I appreciate that.
Any other questions from the committee? Eric? Anyone? Emily, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, budget presentation. Oh, no, this is human resources. This ought to be a good one right here. Let's see. All right.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. I'm Kevin Townsell, Director
So
of
you're
Human Resources.
already receiving harassment, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And with me, I brought up the two right hands of the Human Resources Department. We've got Natasha Parker, who's our HR manager, and Sarah Silvas, who's our risk manager and benefits manager. All right. So what do? We're the department that supports the entire city in terms of all of the departments. And then also we have responsibility to the citizens of the city of Franklin. We do recruiting, hiring, onboarding. We administer the city's defined benefit and defined contribution plan with TCRS, the retirees. We handle all the personnel rules and regulations, OSHA training, civil treatment, procuring and administering all property and casualty insurance, managing the safety program, employee benefits, workplace investigations, wellness, employee recognition, to state a few. As you'll see, that our organizational chart remains, actually it changed some last year and it will change further. This is exactly how it is at this moment though. It's got 12, we have 12 of us needed to support the city, and I have there are no program enhancements in terms of adding more personnel to the Human Resources Department at this time. If you look at our base budget request, well, that's what we just talked about. It has gone up 3.1%, but there are no program enhancements pertaining to personnel. With respect to operations, there is a 15.3% increase over last year's budget, and this is attributed primarily to consulting services that I'll discuss here shortly. And if we go to the program enhancement request, the number one item I have is supervisory training. We've had this in the past, which we've had training for the city's personnel, and we're using outside consultants, and it worked well. It's that time again that we revamp that and we start that up again. So that's why there's a program enhancement that'll include some dollars to get help from a consultant or consultants. You'll also see on the second program enhancement goes with an online training program. Currently, I'd say 100% of our training is done face-to-face, in person. That works well. That's probably the preferred method. But to back that up, we will also want to be able to do some online training, which would mean recording of some of the face-to-face training, but also some training can be done just by text and have emails sent out. It can tell us when somebody opens up a program, opens up a test. We can tell what their answers are if they understood the items in the text, so in the email. So that's an important tool as well. You'll see there's a request for a copier. That's because our current copier is 7 years old. It's time for a new one. This is Sean was talking about. They have a lot of confidential matters. We have confidential matters too, and we produce a lot of documents. We think it's time that we see if we can get a new copier. The next item is an office remodel, and that is more, it would be nice if we can have it more secure setting with a way to buzz in before you come in, and that's what we're asking for. Office furniture, not a large request. A lot of our furniture is dated, and though it can work, it doesn't look as professional as we want to. We want it to look more professional for the citizens. And then, you see, the final one is a new vehicle. That's something which, you know, we were asked to think about over the next 3 years what we would need, and maybe it's not. If we don't get it this year, we want to make sure that there's understanding that our fleet of 5 vehicles is somewhat aged. We've got a 14-year-old vehicle, a 12-year-old vehicle, a 17-year-old one that has, you know, one from 84,000 miles to 48,000 to 114,000. We do have 2 newer vehicles that are fine, the 4-year-old Explorer and then also the 5-year-old Chevy Equinox. So we think that at some point soon we would need to go ahead and eliminate 2 of those higher mileage vehicles and have another vehicle.
So you're gonna do the Tahoe for the 2 highest mileage, because one of those is a pickup truck?
Exactly, exactly.
Do you use the pickup truck very much?
We do. We
But
would
you'd use the Tahoe more.
We would.
It's more practical, isn't it?
Right.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So that is the goal. And I went through it quickly, but I think that really that's a high-level view of our budget request. We're poised to have to continue excellent work for 2019, 2020. And you see some of our highlights from the last year right there. Any questions?
Go ahead, Scott.
So one comment, one question. I appreciate I got a phone call from HR this week. They received a suspicious email from Scott Speedy directing them to change his direct deposit. And they were calling to confirm that I had sent that. I'm like, I did not. So for that poor thief, he should have at least targeted a full-time employee versus an alderman.
That big alderman salary.
Yeah, exactly. And then just one question, any update on the potential additional employee benefit, maybe the 529 plan coming through?
I see that as, we have not seen any hurdles to that coming on board. So we have that is something we plan to have, and there are other things I can't mention now because it's not a done deal, but yes, we see no hurdles to that.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of comments. And you mentioned one of your roles you do is conduct workplace investigation. Is that something that you all see quite a bit of, or is the number up or down or stays even, or is it any at all?
There are
workplace investigations.
Right, and just so you'll know what we're talking about, it doesn't have to be something so
nefarious.
Right. But yes, it's a steady stream that is increased over time. I think primarily because we have larger staff than maybe we've had 2 years ago. But it's nothing that's not manageable. Some of these investigations are quite simple, but sure, it trends up.
Well, the years that I've been here, it's just been, pretty calm. So I think that's a good thing that you all are doing. So I just want to make sure that is the case, that we, at one period of time in the history of this city, I'm sure there was a lot of different things going on related to employees and staff that needed to be investigated. But
And we do try, Kevin and the team and also our departmental leadership, try to be responsive when there is a concern, to get on it fairly quickly, try to understand and resolve it as best we can. So it helps to make sure that we stay focused and we don't ignore any potential issues, and that we go ahead and address them and get information and understand if something needs to be corrected, we correct it. If we need to clarify what happened, we do. And so we try to be very diligent in doing that. And most of that work happens internally. Every once in a while, we need some outside help, and we'll do that where we need it as well. And I think it's just something you need to always have in place, because sometimes you need to look into a situation to understand it and to address an issue or keep a problem from becoming a larger issue for the organization. So I think it's served us well, and our team works very well together with departmental leadership to address those issues.
And we appreciate that.
I would add one comment, just to color in a little more the supervisor training that's proposed. This is something the HR team has worked on very closely with, especially our leadership team, to talk about what that looks like. And the program they're putting together is not just something we bring a consultant in and they talk to us and they go away. It's going to be something that is a blend of what some outside resources can provide, but also what HR can provide. We have some very talented people across our organization that are experts in their own right, and how we pull them in almost as adjunct faculty to this training that we do, and it's targeted to help people that are becoming managers, especially maybe becoming a manager for the first time, to understand what their responsibilities are, understand where they have help and resources, and that HR is going to be in all of these sessions throughout so that they know, well, that's great that that outside person taught me something, but there's somebody from HR or somebody else from our team right there with them, helping provide maybe some more City of Franklin specific insight, but also they know those folks are here every day to help them. If they have a question or need some other assistance, they are there to help them, and that's the kind of program that we're trying to build to help especially new supervisors, even help prepare people that are aspiring to be leaders in the organization. That these are some skills that you need to have, some things you need to understand, and so they're being really systematic in how they're doing it. Did a great session with our leadership team to pull ideas out of them in terms of what we're doing well, what we can improve on, what do we look for in people that are stepping up into leadership. So I think it's a very promising approach, and it blends a lot of the talent we have with augmenting it with some outside resources too. So.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7, IT.
We were just saying a bunch of nice stuff about GIS. Did you hear that?
I heard that.
Okay, good. I figured you were watching.
I was
online.
listening in.
And what's amazing is how it touches about everything we do. Yeah.
Right. I appreciate you saying so. All right. Well, thank you all for giving us the opportunity to come today. I'm Jordan Shaw. I'm your IT director. I have that privilege of serving in that role now for the last couple of years. With me is Jason Potts, who's one of our assistant IT directors. When you look at the purpose of our department, as you all have talked a little bit, we are an internal service department. Our job is to help others do their job. And it's really fascinating if you think about everything that we touch and look at and so forth, things like the GIS that you just talked about, but additionally, things like the communication system police and fire use on a daily basis for their radio. We just finished a massive consolidation project with Williamson County and City of Brentwood. IT was at the core of that project. The city-owned fiber that runs throughout the city, connecting all of our remote locations, our department's responsible for that, in addition to all of the applications and everything the users use on a daily basis. So IT has really got a part in almost every project that the city does. So that's the reason why you don't see us up here a whole lot at board meetings, because we're supporting the ones that are coming up. You look at our org chart, this is the same org chart we had from last year. We have 23 full-time staff, 1 part-time, being an intern. I'm happy to report for several years now, we've actually been 100% staffed with 0% turnover. So we are doing well. We have 2 assistant directors that report to me. Jason is one. He heads up our infrastructure group, which takes care of all the communication systems, fiber, our entire server infrastructure that's at the police department, and our disaster recovery system. And then on the other side, Ryan Tate is our assistant director over application group. So anything that the users use on a daily basis, his department is responsible for. So our overall budget, so you'll see we're actually down 6.3% this year. Little increase in employee personnel, primarily because of insurance costs, but down in overall operations. And a couple of things I want to point out about the operations is you see it's $1.9 million, but 1.6 of that is simply software maintenance that's supporting the departments using their daily software and hardware, sorry. So 1.6 of that is just that, making sure that the maintenance is up to date, making sure they have everything that they need to keep those application and hardware devices running. So that means our actual operations to run the daily department is less than $400,000 when you remove that out of it. So we, try to keep things tight as possible. Technology is expensive, but that's definitely one of the areas that we watch on a constant basis to review. So when it comes to program enhancements, you do see several. We were asked to look at program enhancements from a 3 to 5 year stance. It's sometimes difficult to look at technology that far out because you don't know how technology is going to advance. Advancing involves every day. So we did the best we could in terms of what we know is going to happen. But what I'd really like to focus on is items 1 through 7. Those are the items we're really looking at for this year. And then 8 and below are really future program enhancements we want to look at and going forward. Actually, items 1A, 1B, and 1C, I believe we're going to be able to accommodate in our daily operations budget, base budget. They were here for reporting purposes, but these are positions that have really outgrown where they currently at and have taken on a lot more additional responsibilities. So this is a way to bring those responsibilities into their job description and make sure they're properly compensated for them. So then you get to item 2. These are 2 brand new positions. They're IT technician positions. And the purpose for this is we're really wanting to set up what's called a central support model. So you might be familiar with calling a help desk and you get a person that answers the phone and they immediately try to help you. And if they're not able to help you, then they escalate it to another level. And if that level can't help you, they escalate it to the 3rd level. That's what we're really trying to focus on. We have a lot of talented people on staff. And a lot of higher level people. With all of the projects we have going on, we need to relieve pressure somewhere. And the way to do that is to take some of those entry level tier 1 type support off of their plate so they can focus on those more project, more in-depth positions that they need. And these 2 positions would be that tier 1, answer the phone, immediate response to the customers, because we still have to take care of the daily operations even with all the additional projects that are going on. That's what these 2 positions are going to focus on. Looking at item 3, this is actually a backup internet circuit. So a lot of our applications have moved to what you've heard referred to as in the cloud. That basically means you have to use the internet to access them. Our primary one being Kronos, which is what all of our employees clock in on a daily basis. They put all their leave requests. If we lose internet in this building or in the city, they don't have the ability to clock in. That becomes a payroll issue. We have a lot of issues that go along with that. This would be a backup circuit that simply is dormant when it's not being used, but it does allow that in the times that the internet goes down, it'll reroute to that extra circuit and then continue operations. So disaster recovery. So VSOM, Jason can actually probably speak more details to this, but this is our video security platform. So we put VSOM in, what, 2 or 3 years ago now?
Had it in about 3 years.
3 years ago. And since then, that platform has truly grown. We're over 200 security cameras throughout the city at this point. We're maintaining the recordings for those security cameras for over 30 days in normal retention, and then we have the ability to retain something if there's a criminal case or whatever that goes along with that. And after 30 days, it drops off. We have gotten to where we're at capacity with that. We have additional requests coming on as far as the new water reclamation facility, parks that need additional cameras in the parks throughout the city, and then also with traffic cameras and so forth, being able to retain some of that data. So this would allow us to extend our retention of what we have today and continue to grow that system.
How much capacity would it add then? Is that a?
It would add enough capacity to double the amount of cameras we've got in
Yes, sir.
this operation today.
So that it's a little over 200 cameras, but 205, something like that. So we would, in essence, be able to double that. So we can go up.
So the 75,000 would get us 200 more cameras, basically.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Number 5 is a traffic switch. A lot of people don't realize, but a lot of our traffic lights throughout the city are on our fiber network. And we have a network switch that allows us to communicate to those. Those switches have been in place for several years now. They've gone to what's called end of life, meaning they're no longer supported by the vendor. And we can't get a replacement for the models that are in place. So this would allow us to put new devices in place, replacing the ones that are currently there, gets us the support from the vendor, and allows us to continue operations in case something came up.
How often would that replacement need to happen? Did you say we'd
Correct.
wait for-
Correct me if I'm wrong, these have been in place for about 10 years?
That's
So
correct.
about every 10 years or so, we could look forward to something like
Yes,
this.
ma'am.
Well, have you made Ann makes a request about every 6 months that she can't get out at 96. Have you accommodated?
Well,
that good
we,
now? That
we
good?
don't control the timing, but we do put the systems in place to allow others to control the timing.
We can work with Paul on that.
Absolutely.
They do review a corridor about every year, so they systematically try to go through and update those timings.
Exactly. All right, the OTDR replacement. This is simply a device that allows us to test our fiber network. So when we put fiber network in the roadways and the right-of-way and so forth, we need to be able to test that string to make sure that it's going to communicate properly. This simply has a device on each end of that and tests that communication between that fiber network. And then finally, GIS plotter. You all talked about GIS earlier. It does, our plotter that we have in place, we've had for about 8 years now. The vendor no longer supports the model. We can't get maintenance on it. And it has started to cause some issues, and we have to bring in a maintenance person. Every time we do that, it costs us money. So we'd like to get a new GIS plotter that would allow us to have it under maintenance, so whenever something does come up, the vendor would cover that. The one thing I will say here is GIS does sell data as a part of data request. And it's not a large stream of revenue, but it's definitely enough to cover this plotter. And we're more than happy to answer any questions on those or any of the future requests, but that's what I wanted to present today.
Any questions from the committee?
Yes,
Ann?
just on that, getting your extra people to kind of be an on-call person, I mean, wait, that's not quite right. I've forgotten what they used to call it, right at the first, whenever people would call in to
The
the
help
company.
desk? Yes.
Yeah, kind of, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So these would be the first line. So last year, we worked or dispatched over 5,300 tickets for city staff.
Okay.
So every ticket that comes into the IT department, this team, these two, and a few others, would be the first line to look at it to see if they're able to fix it. If they can't fix it, then they would dispatch it to a second tier that would look at it. And if they couldn't fix it, then ultimately it would go to our highest level staff, which are engineers, to look at it.
Within your department, are you all like training the trader, like within a department, there's someone who could, like an administration, someone can go, it's like, let me fix your tablet.
Absolutely.
So we've
Absolutely.
seen that happen. Personally, I have, because Lynette will do something, to help us without having to come to your department. Is that throughout the system?
It is.
Like at the
And
police department?
we actually run technical training classes. We do about 25 to 30 classes a month where our technical teams trains other city staff on various technologies.
Right, I think Eric have even tried to fix my tablet, so you've done a good job. Training the traders.
But if
Just shaky if you're relying on me.
If I could go back then, but this is what, I had a son who did many, many years ago work, and he said, you try the easy thing first. That would be what these first guys would do.
That's
They
exactly
would have
right.
kind of a list of things that they know to check out without having to do anything really weird first, because most of
Right.
the time that's not it.
And in our current model, we have some higher level personnel that are resetting passwords. And, that's a quick and easy task, but it shouldn't take a high level person to do it. These people would,
Right.
they're entry level positions that would be able to take care of those entry level tasks.
Well, I've been in several times.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Jason or Jordan, either one.
Thank you all so
How's
much.
the county commission business in Murray County?
It's going well.
All right, okay.
We have budget meeting Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
All day Saturday.
Did you tell them how it functions in Franklin?
Well, I tried. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you all. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, Revenue Management and City Court. Lawrence, you're up.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to thank the IT department for changing out my computer so that I have a tablet and could do some information with me. So, good afternoon. I'm Lawrence Sullivan, and I am the lucky one. I'm the Revenue and Licensing Manager and City Court Clerk, the lucky one that gets to work with the people in Revenue Management in the court's office and with Judge Dina Hood. We in Revenue Management perform the billing, collections, and customer service for the City of Franklin water, wastewater, stormwater, sanitation services, some business tax, alcohol taxes, state shared taxes, hotel and motel taxes, and, numerous permits. So our organizational chart for the new year, there are no changes in our organizational chart. I had some notes to which to refer, but I would like to say that this year, to point out that during the year we had 1 transfer out of the department and 2 retirements that afforded us some considered and beneficial internal transfer opportunities. So that's been good for the department, as well as adding some strong new employees. We will continue to cross-utilize folks as we have in the past in the Revenue Management Department and the court, using part-time staff to fill in the fluctuation in our service needs for our customers.
Before you go, you've been able to maintain your part-time position. A lot of times we hear that some departments have to convert their part-time into full-time because they're not able to maintain that part-time.
We've been able
type
to
of
maintain
person.
it. We've been able to maintain it because we've had some dedicated part-time people. It is difficult to find part-time
Okay.
staff.
Yeah.
We have, we are not fully part-time as filled as we would be. We have positions available. It's 2 full-time equivalents in revenue management and 1 full-time equivalent in court. And we don't maintain that many people actively engaged in it, but we make sure we keep them on a part-time status, and they're willing to do that. But it is difficult to find them. Yes, ma'am. I wanted to point out that our operational costs are down 9.4%, a reduction in the revenue management area. With our retirements, we've had modest payroll savings. With some fine-tuning, we've had modest operating savings. And with a sweep of his pen, Budget and Strategic Innovations Manager, Michael Walters Young, there it is, that magic pen. Michael we have a modest increase in a reimbursement for interfund services that we provide to the Water and Sewer Department and the Sanitation Department for the billing services. So, but even across the board there. I'm moving to court. The court, our mission is to effectively and accurately process traffic and city violations, allowing the court to handle cases in the most efficient manner possible, and with a very modest staff of 2 full-time people and some part-time support and some cross-utilization from revenue management, we're able to do that. A very dedicated, small group of people there. 6 months ago, we added a position here that was a transfer from the police department effectively. The court security and parking enforcement officer has come under the city court and reporting structure. 90% of what he does out in the field, just for you to know and understand as the traffic enforcement officer, is ambassadorial. 90% of the citations that he issues are warnings to help people know and understand. And in this current time where our parking in downtown has gone from 4 hours to 2 hours, he's been a very effective and done a great job for us out there, servicing our customers, our community, our visitors, and the people that work here. So he loves to find the scofflaws that get to their 4th and 5th citation, and those start costing him a bunch of money, and he works on them, so that's good.
So does he issue 2 different citations?
He
then?
does. We have a
One's a
standing-
warning and one's a,
We have a standing practice policy to issue 2 warnings to anybody in conjunction with a parking violation. And then he moves on to a $21 ticket is number 3, $31 ticket is number 4, and a $51 ticket in any 12 months is what follows after that. We don't have many folks that get to that $51 ticket. So they change their behavior by that time.
they need to ride the transit, don't they?
They absolutely should. They absolutely should. We have absolutely no program enhancements, but I did want to report something that it's been in this past year. Right now, we are in the process of reviewing proposals for the implementation of, or the selection of a vendor to do our electronic bill presentment and payment service for our customers and revenue management. Something that we've needed to do for them for a long time. And its costs are so wonderful that, that with mail and other fulfillment and communication benefits with those customers, we expect that at full implementation, a net bottom line savings for the city will come about. And so it's raising and improving the service to allow people to have an online portal to view, to manage how they deal with the city and pay their bills, and communicate with us to communicate with them, and it'll save us all time, energy, and money. It's going to be wonderful. We're reviewing that right now, so let your constituents know it's finally here if they ask. It's
And we
coming.
do have citizens inquire periodically about when are you going to have that? You know, they're used to having it in so many other facets of their lives that they're saying, well, when's the city gonna give me this option? So that's what this will help us do, and appreciate Lawrence's efforts and those of the rest of our team to put that together.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that working with Dina Hood has been great. She's just signed up for her second term for 4 years, and she's been a wonderful judge for the city of Franklin. So that's what I have.
Any questions? Any other questions? Lawrence, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Honored to be here to represent those folks. Thank you.
Project and Facilities Management. Brad, you're up.
Afternoon, everyone. You're more than welcome. I did check, and I was in communication this morning with different people saying, for God's sakes, have them out there.
Hey, the only bad thing was I had to get out of the car to move it.
Yeah.
Or to get
Yeah.
in, but anyway.
At least you didn't call us to come do that, so that works out too, so. Appreciate your time today.
Were we supposed to park where there was a cone? I mean, I didn't
All
park.
I am is a guy that's asked to have cones, so.
So do we need to get?
Remember the old cone heads on Saturday Night Live?
Well, maybe we need to get Lawrence back up to head off that warning.
Possibly. I think the mayor or Eric even moved his spot today, sacrificial lambs, so.
Spot is available.
Yeah, spot is available.
The sacrificial lamb. Eric is a sacrificial lamb?
It was in regards to the parking today, I think, so, anyway. Well, our, purpose of our department, I think everybody around here knows, is trying to make City Hall and the other facilities as good and healthy as we possibly can. With, we say very busy, we continue to, I know it's on the front of, on the screen here as well, but, you know, our goal basically is to keep a safe and healthy environment for everybody. We try to continue to strive to make improvements to City Hall when they are needed, trying to keep things dry. Public Works facility, we have a couple of enhancements for Public Works facility that we can go over as well. We continue to make everything, or continue to work towards a LEED format on everything that we do in remodeling and new construction. Personnel-wise, our organizational chart's really staying about the same. I am asking for one additional custodial person this year. We had, we dropped a custodial position maybe about 3 years ago, but we're staying fairly busy now with crews at Public Works, crews at Fire Hall. We get around quite a bit during the day. So if we had kind of another staff person that could help our team with cleaning and waxing or whatever we kind of need, it would greatly appreciate and would help our staff and team as well. That's pretty much it on the personnel side. I don't really have a whole lot of changes until we get to the enhancements, if you don't mind. But we're, in regards to my budget, our budget I think is fairly flat, fairly the same as it was last year. Wasn't a whole lot of changes in the items that we have. Michael, you want to do?
Before we leave from personnel, the custodians are city employees?
Yes, ma'am. We do have a cleaning service, yes, it goes through I'm looking in the process of putting that back out for bid. We've had the staff that does our cleaning for a number of years, but I think it's maybe time to make a change. And with a little bit of stuff that I've got going on, I need to just finish up the document and give it to Brian, and we'll put it out for bid. So, but they do.
For a service.
Yes, a service. So they do City Hall, they do Public Works. They've been doing in the past sanitation, environmental services. They do some work over at the training center. So that's what we've had in the past, and it's worked well. But as much as we've grown with not only facilities but also staff, you know, it's more demanding.
So these two, where are they? Are they here at City Hall, the two custodial positions right here?
I have Miss Mary, who is over at PD. Miss Mary Martin's over at PD, so she helps over there with any problems or spills or troubles that they may have. But she also is primary for setting up the training conference room or the community room over there.
Yeah.
She tries to take care of that the best she can. And then Miss Debbie Crutcher, who is here working with Nate Powers.
Okay.
Debbie does some of that as well. And this other person would be based out of this area too, but kind of would possibly get to a part of maybe roaming to other facilities, wherever Jim feels that person would need to go. And honestly, may see if there's a way that we can get somebody later in the afternoon or later in the mornings to stay a few hours at night. So just to kind of work with floors, but we would still have a cleaning service,
Right.
Subcontractual.
And this is where most of our public come into this building. I mean,
It is. We
throughout
have
the day and evening.
throughout the day and throughout the evening, and I just completed a little bit of a study, if you don't mind, for our facilitation group that's working on the City Hall project, coming up with numbers. And I think we roughly became between 80 to nearly 100,000 citizens and patrons come through City Hall a year.
Yeah.
So it's quite a few meetings. It's, when you started looking at it on paper, it was like, wow. So, good wow factor.
Quite a few bathroom,
Yes.
quite a few bathroom uses.
Quite a few.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Miss Margaret.
Garage?
Kind of works between the streets, downtown landscape crew. They help a lot over there. They work on that area there, and then we go in there and run the sweeper. Once every couple of months, we'll go in there, they'll come through and blow it, but streets usually helps us with that as well. And then we try to keep the elevators up the best that we can, try to do any other additional
Is that a
work.
problem?
Ma'am?
Are the elevators a problem?
They are. I mean, you have vandalism down there and graffiti and so forth. You know, Eric gets those calls, the mayor gets those calls, and usually when they call me, we try to get over there just as quick as we possibly can. Sometimes the elevator may be down for a day. We're looking for some things to try to help us technology-wise to alert us if we do have an elevator down. This past weekend, we had main control board in 4th Avenue go out, and we had to rescue some folks out of it, but that's all been taken care of. So we have our maybe once a month problem every couple of months, but it's hard keeping that area clean. We've had all the construction, as you're aware of, this year. So a lot of time has been spent with that as well. But I give a big shout out to the streets group, because they've come through and they really help keeping things blown down, and because of the hours that they have to work and try to get in there.
Thank you.
We do have cameras in our garages.
We do.
But not necessarily inside the elevator.
No, we do
Okay,
not.
so- all right.
We have them looking at the elevators though.
Okay.
So if we have a problem, we can go back.
Okay.
And we have done that a couple of times, so. Next time you're there, just turn around and wait.
Well, we make sure the bad guys and girls know that cameras.
Yeah, we've got the cameras out there.
Thank you.
Wherever you want to go, I'm following your lead, brother. Program enhancements. We have a list of program enhancements. Do you have those that kind of show as well?
I can pull up the list of them.
You want to kind of go through each one of them that way?
We don't need to go
Groupings,
Don't?
17
I would
of
say.
them.
Okay.
Groupings.
Okay, well, a couple of the big ones, if you don't mind, I'll say this. One was community room over at PD, and a lot of these things are in areas like Public Works, PD, and so forth. We've talked about the custodial person, but over at PD, we know how much the community room is used over there. That facility is now going on 12 years old, so it's needing a coat of paint. It's needing some new carpet in the community room. It's needing a little dressing up. So I've put in there for that. One of the larger items that I've put in this year was what I'll call a controlled records retention room, because storage is everything. There is a space that is over in PD that is secured. It's fire protected. And it's to look to go down there to maybe look to see the items that we need to store. We could put them over there. I know that through the IT department, they've worked with U.S. Communities vendor, RICO, to look at scanning materials for us now that will be scannable, and I think there's some storage. I think that's out of the Atlanta area, how that works, I don't know exactly. But there are some items that maybe we need to store ourselves close by. So that's the reason for the records retention space. Another item, and I'll quit here in a minute, but another item has been the downtown benches. You know, they're kind of in tough shape down there. And I was noticing it not too long ago, and so just recently, my dear brother-in-law who goes down to Amish country, I sent him a sample, and he went down there, and we're looking at maybe just replacing wood on most of them. And then we're looking at buying 4 or 5 of the metal ones that we have around the 5 Points area. But they're kind of tough on to sit. I've watched some people start to go down and then kind of get back up. So my goal is to try to replace and/or replace all of the wood on the benches out there on the square around city. People like to sit as I do, and they just need a good place. A little bit of stuff at the Public Works where the break room is, looking to maybe put some material on the walls to help protect the walls and help the cleaning over there. I put in some money this year for the wastewater department. I know they're doing their big remodel and work over there, but I don't think in their current administration area over there they're looking to do much remodeling or work. So I was looking to put a new flooring down in their space, as currently some of those offices have been carpeted and/or are carpet now. So wastewater and carpet sometimes doesn't mix real well. So if we could put more of a hard floor surface like we have in the lobby area out here, that's kind of what I'm looking to do, something that's a little bit easier to clean. And then just some other tactical items in regards to painting and carpet replacement through different departments. And then also went ahead this year and put in there for if we are to look at some future work with City Hall is relocation of our domestic and our fire line suppression system, which is all currently located in the men's and women's restroom area here on this end of the building. And I would be looking to move it down to the facilities end of the building, because the hope is to take this part of the structure down and leave that part of the structure for square footage space for offices during that transition. That's about all I have.
Mr. Chairman, may I just mention one thing while Brad is with us? Yes. Of course, later in our, we have an item for our facilities tax later on in our agenda, but Brad is our primary person on Fire Station 7 that's funded with facilities tax. And while Brad is with us, certainly he has been working diligently this fiscal year on that project, and there'll be more work next fiscal year on Fire Station 7. Right now, there's a lot of dirt.
Oh, yeah, we're
being
working
moved.
on Franklin out there. We're trying to figure out how the ski run's gonna be put in out there, going down the hill, but you can't miss it if you go by Long Lane.
But that's also on Brad's plate, in our support services teams attempting to, we are assisting him the best we can, so we just wanted to bring that up while Brad was with us. That project is certainly underway. We've got a construction contract that you've awarded, and we're working out there on that side.
And that isn't just our fire station, that also incorporates an EMS facility for the county paramedics. So it will serve that area very well.
Yep. Other questions?
Any questions from the committee? Brad, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Purchasing. Brian, you're up.
Good afternoon, members of the Budget and Finance Committee. My name is Brian Wilcox, and I'm pleased to serve as your purchasing manager for the city. And with me at the table is Suzanne Ward, who is our purchasing analyst. We are an office of 3, so 2/3 of your purchasing office is represented at the hearing today.
That's the best attendance I think we've had, although the law department probably beat you.
Percentage-wise, yes.
Percentage-wise, yes.
The focus of the purchasing function for the city of Franklin, we divide the purchasing function into two broad categories. That which pertains to the design and/or construction of new infrastructure and facilities, and that which does not. The purchasing office focuses its attention on the purchase of goods and services that do not pertain to new construction, and for the most part, we leave to the engineering department and the facilities office purchasing that pertains to new construction. The aim of the purchasing office is to facilitate the procurement of non-construction related products and services for the city at the right specification, in the right quantity, at the right price, from the right source, for delivery at the right time, at the right location, and for the right end user department. The mission of the purchasing office is to support the city's end user departments in the policy compliant procurement of non-construction related products and services so that the city may fulfill its mission. Secondly, to strive for the city to receive a maximum value for every non-construction related purchase of the city. And finally, to strive to preserve and enhance the public trust in the manner in which the city conducts its non-construction related purchasing. Some routine duties of the purchasing office. We administer the purchasing card program. We, along with Fleet, administer the city's fleet fuel purchasing program. We, along with Fleet and Police, administer the disposal of the city's surplus personal and seized property. The purchasing office represents the city at area vendor outreach events. We process procurement requisitions. We prepare and release procurement solicitation documents and facilitate formal solicitations. We review vendor contracts, and we function as the centralized point of contact for vendors seeking to do business with the city. Our extremely complicated organizational chart follows.
Any questions?
We've been fortunate to have Suzanne since 2012, and joining us last year is Leslie Pewitt, who serves as our purchasing technician. She is the front face of the purchasing office when you first walk in, and Suzanne and I have enjoyed working with Leslie. No substantive changes to the base budget request in the purchasing office. Additional funding has been allocated for professional development. This is primarily because the city was a beneficiary of my earning a discount on registration for in recognition of service on a conference committee over the last several years. And also last year, that conference being held in Nashville. And so it moves around the nation, and as a consequence, the budget looks like it's increasing for professional development. Really, the money is just going back to where it used to be in terms of the outcomes. We have two program enhancement requests this year. Both would improve the ability of the purchasing office to meet the needs of the other departments of the city who we think of as our clients. The first is for an additional person that we are tentatively titling Procurement Officer 4. And this person, the purpose of this additional position would be to add capacity, especially with respect to formal procurement solicitations, such as solicitations for bids and requests for proposals. As the city continues to grow, so do the demands of the purchasing office to assist departments and vendors. Our second enhancement request is for procurement requisition approval workflow software. This software would provide for a more efficient means for creating and processing procurement requisitions. The software would allow this process to be performed electronically, which would reduce the time it takes to create and process these requisitions. Approval of this software request would benefit the purchasing office, but maybe more importantly, the departments that we serve by reducing the cycle time it takes to purchase and receive items needed by the city. So in summary, the purchasing office is dedicated to the principles of integrity, transparency, competition, and fairness in the procurement of non-construction related products and services needed by the various departments of the city. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
I think, last year you talked a little bit about a lot of the work was being done with paper rather than the technology and online. Has that changed, or is this what this is gonna do, this software, workflow software? Are you still doing a lot of handwritten? I'm looking at her because she's like, yeah.
So those requisitions are available on the city's internal website for departments to access, and they can fill them out electronically, but then they have to print them and sign them and then scan them and send them electronically to the next person, and that person needs to print them and sign them and scan them again, and it becomes cumbersome. This software would do away with that process and automate the workflow so that it would, depending on what the requisition was for, whether a service was involved, whether insurance is required, whether it's enough money involved, would route the requisition to the right person electronically. They could sign off electronically. There presumably would be less paper consumed, but more importantly, would make for a more efficient process.
Eric, did he request this last year and it just didn't go through, or what is this new?
Position?
No, the software.
This is a new request.
Just a new
We
request.
have requested software in the past that some of which has been funded, but some of which hasn't been, and we've decided to focus most.
Okay.
We had a request in last year for e-procurement, I think is what we called it. And it was very
Maybe that's
broad.
what I'm thinking
And
about.
we're now focusing in on what's the critical pain point at the highest priority for us to really zero in on. And that's the approach we're taking this year.
I just want to make sure we give you what you need and making sure you have that idea.
Any other questions or comments? Brian, Suzanne, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would the committee like to take a 5-minute break or something? Are you? Everybody good? Everybody good?
I think we have, one of our staff needs a break.
Let's take a 5-minute break.
It's a welcome.
Majority rules.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be proud of that.
Stefan. Stefan, are you ready? Oh. Interesting to see what that is.
Oh, yeah,
Infinitely better, improved.
Ooh, I'm glad you didn't answer that. No, I don't know what this is. No. The one in the middle of work session on Tuesday was my daughter. We're good? Are we on? Yeah. Stefan says go.
If we're ready, let's go ahead and continue the meeting. Next item on the agenda is the finance presentation.
Good afternoon. My name is, good afternoon. My name is Mike Lowe. I'm the city's comptroller, and Michael Walters Young and I and Christine Talent are here to present the finance department budget. And probably how I would summarize to begin is there is not much change from the previous year to the 2020 budget. We'll do our budget just like you've seen the other departments. They'll follow this outline, and we'll do the same. The purpose of the department, I see it here on the screen, but what I'd like to do is maybe just mention about the fact that the finance department provides financial services. And one of the biggest things I'm aware of is what we provide here to the Finance Committee. So maybe what I'd like to highlight is very quickly just some things that are going to be coming up at your May and June meeting. At your May meeting, what we'd like to do is we like to try to, in essence, have flexibility in the reporting. So what we'd like to do is to have a report on grants. The city, when I first came here, we had maybe a handful. Now we have over 20. And we know the committee has asked questions in the past before about grants, but we'd actually like to, at that meeting, actually bring you a grants report. What grants we have, what the grants or amounts are for, as well as how much has been used, that kind of information. And then at the June meeting, we'd like to do maybe what we've been doing the past few June meetings, is having policy updates. So what we'd like to maybe do is to bring you a payroll policy and also a capital assets policy. So those are kind of two things we're thinking that are on the horizon. And also I'd like to highlight the role that Michael has had in the capital investment process, because he's been doing that as far as helping to make sure that we've got the capital projects and the capacity to basically take care of those. On the organization chart, the finance department is 9 full-time employees, 3 part-time employees. And the question was asked, how are you on maintaining part-time employees? 1 of them is an intern and 2 are retirees. That's it, absolutely. And Christine's position is now in the administrative department. On this right here, when we look at personnel, there's actually a slight decrease. And what we believe here is there might be just where someone's made a change in selection on their health insurance. So that's why I think you see the decrease. Over here, you actually have in operations where we actually show a difference of 29,000. And one of the things that we think is the primary driver here is we were actually reviewing our budget, and we actually saw that the finance department had an expense for vehicles. We have no vehicles. So in essence, what it is, we realized it was simply a budgeted item that needed to be moved to a different department. So in essence, that's the primary item here, but also we don't have any budgeted computer replacements in 2020, so that accounts for most, if not all, of that amount. And I would like to say what's in operations, we actually pay for the investment advisor, the debt advisor, as well as half of the banking fees. Revenue management, who collects for the city, actually pays the other half of banking fees. And what I'd like to do is maybe let Michael take you through the enhancement request. And maybe before, I guess, I turn it over to Michael, is this very first one here is something that we're trying to maybe help in doing the reporting that comes to the annual report. Because this program, if it is approved, would actually let us have more flexibility with preparing the annual report. That document right there. Yeah. Because what it is now, it's kind of a combination of Excel and Word. But if we had in a program, there could be multiple users in the program, as well as the ability to insert things like pictures into the city's annual report.
Good afternoon, everyone. Michael Walters-Young, Budget and Strategic Innovation Manager. Good news, you're 2/3 of the way through your budget hearings in the last marathon budget meeting of the year. So, keep that in mind. Second request from the Finance Department is for part-time administrative assistants. We converted our administrative assistant position to a 4th financial analyst a couple of years ago. It's been a very good transition. We actually have that position open right now. We're going to be doing interviews next week to fill that 4th and final vacancy. But we've noticed that there's just some basic administrative work, especially in terms of scanning, that just is taking up time. We believe that trying to find several hundred hours, perhaps as many as 10 hours a week as it would be, 480 a year total, and that's where that $13,000 comes from, would be a good idea to help with finance and potentially the purchasing department. We're going to talk about potential solutions and how to accommodate that if we can with existing resources, but we know that this is a need that is impacting the overall efficiency of the department. The third and final program enhancement is an oldie but a goodie, and that is to add a 5th financial analyst specifically for data and analytics. This is not really a request for fiscal 2020. It's actually kind of looking at beyond in fiscal 21 or 22. And it would really kind of stem from the work that we're doing with the internal data analytics team. That team, spearheaded by me, is myself, as well as Jordan Shaw, who you saw earlier today, and several members of his staff, Chris Robinson in GIS, who's received a fair amount of acclaim already. Today, Ryan Tate and Wayne Good. We are working still to try to build what we call the metadata table for the organization, which is to synthesize all of the data, make sure that it can actually talk to one another to the legal extent possible. Certainly, we've got some databases that have protected information. But the eventual goal that we would want for the city, and we have the templates and the tools in place to do the data mining, would be that we could actually take our databases and connect them and be able to start doing actual prescriptive data analytics, to be able to take a look at trends. It's one of the most valuable resources we have, and we've got a ton of it. We want to make it useful to us in ways that I can't even fully describe. But that combination of GIS plus payment records, plus crime statistics, plus fire calls, plus street pavings, you can start to layer the data on top of one another and be able to pull out what's going on in neighborhoods in a completely different way. We're not there yet, but we see a position like this being important to be able to sort of be an on-call either data analyst or some would call it a data scientist. Again, we want to keep it on your radar, and that's why it keeps making its appearance on this list. So in 2020, the Finance Department is poised to continue its role in supporting the various boards and departments of the city, delivering the high-quality services that you and our citizens have come to expect. This is where we get to toot our own horn and show some bling. We are proud of our accomplishments. For 27 consecutive years, the City of Franklin, Tennessee has won the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the document that Christine showed a few minutes ago, the CAFR. For the 11th consecutive year, we have been the recipient of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, also by the Government Finance Officers Association. And FY18 marked the 4th year in a row where you had no audit findings in your audit. So we are proud of what we do. Mike, if you want to take a moment and introduce the rest of the staff who's here.
Yes, we actually have persons in the audience who are actually part of the team that help us to make sure that we have the accomplishments that have been listed. Katie Hilty, she oversees the processing section. Margaret Wilson and Lori Pope, who are both financial analysts. We thank them for their work.
Mike, you did get the camera on them, right?
Any questions?
Any questions from the committee? Anywhere else? Gentlemen, lady, thank you. We appreciate that. Ladies, we appreciate your attendance. Thank you. Next time, we want you to sit about 2 seats closer to the front.
They're smart, yeah.
Then are we ready for item 12, appropriations? Mike?
Yes,
you're up
we are.
again.
So the appropriations budget provides the only place within the City of Franklin's budget we try to centralize appropriations to various outside agencies, functions, and programs. There are really 3 categories when you look at this budget, and they are detailed in your detailed budgets. There is aid to what we would call contracted services. That would include things such as money for the Regional Transit Authority in Franklin Tomorrow, as well as the Sister Cities program. There's appropriations to other governments. So that includes the county in terms of county health department. I think Eric and I would say among the most important and useful dollars we spend every year, and that is to contract out animal control. We don't have to worry about it. We know it will be taken care of. So that does show an increase this year of $8,320. It's the best $8,320 increase you're going to have in this year's budget. It also includes aid to Williamson County Library. And then sort of the meat of what you think of when you think of appropriations is aid to outside nonprofits and outside agencies. They are detailed in Granicus. If you want the paper files, They're right here. We have validated that everyone has turned in proper paperwork, either the state reporting form as well as our reporting form, as well as audits. And you see that within the base budget, there is no increase that we project within that sort of section of appropriations. There is a decrease overall in this budget because last year we received word that we planned on a large increase in the 91X service. That ended up being mitigated. The word out of RTA this year is that that will be level funded at the rate it's been. So therefore, budget to budget, it's actually a significant decrease. But in reality, we have been paying the same for 3 or 4 years now. And then, of course, that increase with animal control. There are 5, possibly 6, program enhancement requests, though, and I just want to go through each of them individually. Mid-Cumberland is requesting $5,250 additional dollars for 2 programs. They have submitted the Youth Can program for several years now. This is not a program that the city has opted to fund. Again, it's our rule with appropriations that we've worked out and presented to you. Anything that is a dollar amount increase, we present as a program enhancement, which then allows you to kind of take a look at the details and see if you want to, or advise Eric as he makes his recommendations. Gentry's Education Center is requesting an additional $10,000. They have received $10,000 in 17 and $15,000 18 and 19. So the level funded amount is $15,000. This would take them up to $25,000. Second Harvest is requesting an additional $1,000. They are funded currently at $1,500. They received an increase of $231 in fiscal 18 to bring them up to $1,500. And Graceworks is requesting an additional $5,000, which would take them up to $20,000 from their current level of $15,000. Everyone else requested level funded budgets. Any questions on appropriations?
So, I mean,
There were some brand new ones too, is that right?
There were no brand new ones. Well, the Mid-Cumberland Youth Can is a brand new one, yes. Not a new
Support
agency.
Mid-Cumberland, but not that.
It's a new
aspect.
it's a new program that is produced by Mid-Cumberland.
so yeah, what would be the process be if we decided to enhance some of those requests? I mean, some agencies just didn't ask, and shame on them, they should ask and see if they get funded.
Well,
Or, I mean, a lot don't, that's what I'm saying.
They're happy to get.
Right. But I'm wondering about the ones that have asked, though. I mean, what's the process to approve it? I don't know.
the process
Take
is
the Gentry Center, for instance.
right. So
perhaps.
the process is simply what we've tried to do here. This is probably one of the cleanest or clearest areas that you can see the difference between a base budget and a program enhancement request, because we literally don't change the dollar amount from the year before. So by highlighting this and these increases, it would really be a question of, certainly the detailed materials and what they use the money for is here. There is some narrative in each one that suggest what they would use the additional money for. If there is a strong desire on behalf of any of these, we certainly are willing to consider it, and I turn it over to the man whose budget and recommendation that
Well-
will be made.
And I'll make a comment also. At one time, years ago, there was also a formula that we did on appropriations. And I think that formula was that we didn't furnish more than 33% of the total budget for any 501c3 or something other like that. And that, I could be off on that somewhere along the way. We don't normally do a budget request. Well, we may do it, but we don't normally do a budget request that almost doubles the amount from the previous year. So those things I would look at, and as far as the Mid-Cumberland Youth Can, if it doesn't go specifically to Franklin or benefit Franklin, I'm not sure that I would expand that operation either. But again, use your discretion, and come back with whatever you need to present to us then. I mean, just like you said, Scott, you're not gonna, we're not gonna sit here and just go through and say, well, I think this one needs a little bit more, even though they didn't ask for it. If you don't ask for it, you're probably not gonna get it. But, normally we've tried to hold appropriations down to a certain percentage, and, some of those are pretty significant increases, even though there might not be a lot of increase in dollars.
And we're always welcome your guidance on how you want to handle this. It's sort of an open area. We've sort of treated it as a base budget type of item and highlighted any changes for you and taken any guidance you have from there. We have been hesitant to sort of just open it up to, whoever else might want to come in. But it is certainly something we'll take your guidance on what else you need to see. We have established over the last several years specific service contracts each year that we do with the entities to establish basic accountability, the public purpose for each, the use of the money, and just make sure that we're getting good reporting about what they're doing and how they're using public funds. So those are the pieces we try to track, but it is really a discretionary item of the board about who you want to support and at what level. And, I always welcome your guidance if you want more information or if you want something else or you want us to look at something that isn't here. That's a discussion we'll always follow your lead on, I guess I would say.
I did finally notice here it says that the youth can, all those funds would be used to participants who reside within Franklin. So, sometimes they're not, though. I mean, I know
Sometimes
some
they're
of the
not.
others, it says in Williamson County, or
Yeah.
maybe, because, some of them look like they're, sending something into Williamson County, and so then they say what percent is in Williamson County, what percent of the.
Again, you have mine that anybody else want to make a comment? Margaret's got her hand up. She wants to make a comment.
I'm not on this committee, but I will.
Well,
I don't
you're
really
gonna be one of
know
the voting
a lot
eight.
about all of these others, except I do know about the Gentry Center.
Mm-hmm.
And they are our little children that desperately need to read and write. And they're behind the 8 ball to start with, and they need any extra help they can get. So, if you want to look at the big picture, you're going to teach these children to become citizens and not end up under a bridge in a box. So as an alderman, I would hope that we could, even though that's a big amount, I would hope that we could go with that and even more, if we could. It's worth it. It really is worth it. And I'm not saying the others aren't, I just don't know about the others.
I would echo Alderman Martin's comments on Gentry Center as well. They have been here before us. We have had testimony from some of the students and parents who had child X, couldn't read or couldn't do X. After working within the Gentry Center program, that same child is now more productive in his reading and his writing and whatever, and really excelling because of that personalized attention that's been given in that center. And these teachers that come on board with Ms. Gentry, a lot of times they just volunteer in their service half of the time. So these are not always paid positions for these teachers to work within. And there are summer programs as well as after-school programs. So worthwhile for our community children, and most of them reside within the Franklin Special School District. We've had a lot of conversation about that over the last couple of months, so this would be positive.
Ann?
I also noticed here that it says they don't possess any equipment funded by Williamson County, but previous funding from the city of Franklin allowed them to purchase a Promethean board. I don't know what that is, but anyway, used for tutoring and enrichment activities, and it's located at Johnson Elementary, which would be inside Franklin Special School District.
Well, no, I know Evelyn Hickerson has been here before. I think she was here last year to make the to make a presentation in person. And, again, I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, from a policy standpoint, we don't normally do that great of an increase. If it's the board's desire, you can certainly go back and look at some of these right here, but, we've normally tried to stay within a certain percentage, as far as increase is concerned. And I think we've been, I think Evelyn would tell you that we've been very generous the last couple of years to go from the amount that we've gone up to the 15,000 that we're up now.
I would also add, on your detailed budget, at the bottom of page 2, we do keep an updated sort of total of your 10 years of appropriations. Given the relative growth of the general fund in the last, I guess it's only 9 on this chart, this is a fund that has grown, but has still remained relatively in a tight sort of composite amount. I mean, in 2012 there was a total of 414,000, and the forecast for 2020, at least the base budget forecast, is 475. So it's certainly, to your point, Mr. Chairman, there has been an effort to keep it focused, shall we say, of where you want to spend your dollars in this manner. But again, I will certainly, we've taken notes. I know the city administrator has taken notes, and we'll take that under advisement.
Ann?
I also might say that some of us remember probably right before 2012, whenever we really had a downturn, and Eric, I think you came in on kind of the end of this, when we had a downturn in revenues and we cut way back. And I think one of the things that we cut back on was the appropriations, the outside appropriations.
Everybody understood.
That's right.
Well, did we cut back, or did we just hold our own and make sure we
we-
did not put anybody else new on there?
We did do across-the-board reduction at one point, and then
Okay.
we restored that a few years later when our budget rebounded. Essentially, you remember at one point, and we cut it down about $9 million. And when we got back closer to that original budget that we had in 2008, 2009, that's when we restored the appropriations back to that level. We've maybe done a little bit of a couple inflationary bumps and a few adjustments since then, but it's largely held the same.
Any other comments? Any other questions of Michael? Then, let's go to economic development.
All right, I'll kick this one off. This is really an area in which we make some specific contributions to some organizations that assist in economic development, both locally and regionally. It's 5 different funding amounts to 4 different organizations that are in this segment of your budget. And I'll go ahead and click to the next slide, which gives you the specific breakout, which has the Williamson County Chamber, the base support there for $25,000, the Greater Nashville Regional Council, and this is an amount that cities across the region, it's a 13-county region that's involved in GNRC. We all pay a per capita amount into supporting that organization, which provides a lot of support for regional planning and investment and various services there. The Nashville Area Chamber, we're a $3,000 member there, and then the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which now really works under GNRC on regional transportation planning at $9,000. And then we've augmented a program for business retention and development along with the chamber over the last several years, and that's funded at $30,000. As we noted in the other budget materials, there's support for the Convention and Visitors Bureau that runs through the hotel motel tax, because we dedicate a portion, 1% of that tax, directly to the CVB's activities. So that doesn't show up here, but obviously has some economic development implications. The only program enhancement we have is a request from Williamson, Inc. for an additional $10,000 of support towards economic development and their program. I do not have some more specifics on what that would be targeted towards. Michael, I don't know if we have anything other than they submitted it.
It is in your packet,
Okay.
but I can't really say that the additional amount is distinguished from what that initial base is and the services and functions that they do. They did provide, a description of some of the various, as they called it, solutions-oriented approaches that they use, and networking opportunities and connections to education and what have you. So we ask all agencies to certainly, if they do want additional resources, just like with appropriations, we certainly take their budget requests just like we do with departments, and we are simply relaying that to you.
Eric, anything else? Anything from the committee?
That really, I think that covers it. I'll do a little more research from Williamson Inc. about the specifics on their
the
request.
additional 10?
Yeah, what that really would track to, and let you know from there, so.
Then let's go to item 14, budget presentation, miscellaneous general fund department, general expenses and intra-fund transfers. Mr. Young, you're up again.
So we are getting down to the few remaining budgets. There's
This
only
is the catch-all
3 more
section.
items, so this is the catch-all section. This one actually is relatively straightforward. The next two are actually going to be, we'll take a few minutes, but are pretty much estimates at this point. So there are 2 departments from a budgetary standpoint which are included in this presentation. One is general expenses and one is interfund transfers. General expenses include generally everything else that's an expense in the general fund that really doesn't have a home. You note that, we certainly try to itemize everything we can into the responsible departments. So we have a section for economic development, we have a section for outside agency appropriations, and then obviously all of our service departments. General expenses are really expenses which are shared amongst either multiple departments or are shared sort of for the greater good of the city. So they include sort of a catch-all clearinghouse for the city's medical and dental expenses, our dues for TML, our annual audit costs, fuel hedging, the National Citizen Survey, and other shared software services such as the Open Performance Site and our annual dues for the Tennessee Municipal Benchmarking Project. We have maintained now, and we're proposing for a 3rd budget year in a row, to keep $100,000 set aside for supportive housing initiatives in the general fund. It's there. That's all I'm going to say. You can access it when ideas come around. You will note that there is a large increase. This always happens every year. And this is because the single greatest item in this budget is the annual wage increase. We put it here and then distribute it out to individual departments with the first budget amendment of the year. So it always looks like a significant increase. In this case, personnel is 135%. In reality, no, it's not 135%, but this is accurate for the math. Operations are a slight decrease because we won't be doing the citizen survey again next year. We will refine this as we go through the budget process internally with Eric and the ECAs and myself in the next couple of weeks to figure out exactly what that amount is. But we try to put a 5% placeholder for wage increases in the budget at the beginning, and then if we can accommodate that, great. If we cannot, then we will bring that back down in order to make budgets balanced. But that is the largest single driver that is in there under the personnel line. Any questions on general expenses? So interfund transfers, this is the accounting, if ever there was a department in the budget set up purely for accounting purposes, this would be it. Interfund transfers are those transfers which go from one fund to another. We have made a series of transfers, and you see this year we've, $3.5 million. This began as one number, which was around $985,000, and that was the transfer to the transit fund. This $1 million placeholder, again, is that number. We now have that request from the transit authority, as you saw today, of $1,003,000. So we will change that number to $1,003,000. But beyond that, we are not proposing any other budgeted transfers to start the year. So that means we're not planning necessarily a subsidy for the sanitation fund. That's where that would be budgeted. Other transfers to capital project funds would occur here. So, moving money to either the capital project fund, or when we moved money to set up the county facilities tax fund, or any other contributions, it will be recorded here as a proper legal way for us to move money from one fund to the other. Any questions on either of those budgets?
Any questions of the committee?
Okay.
Then let's go to item 15, budget presentation, development of growth and related funds, city facilities tax fund, county facility tax fund, road impact fund, hotel motel tax fund, and parkland dedication fund.
We will go as quickly as we can through these. Here's my caveat with all of these. These are development services funds or growth-related funds. So city facilities, county facilities, road impact, in lieu of parkland are all directly related to development within the community. Thus, the receipts into each of those funds are highly dependent upon the development. If permits are pulled, we get money. If permits are not pulled, we don't get money. So we try to be reasonably conservative in our revenue forecasts. The other side of this is you're going to see some large fund balances appearing by the end of fiscal 20 in some of these funds. That's because these budgets only include items which we have committed funds to at this time. We will work in the next 4 weeks to develop tentative capital budgets within each of these for projects, or if nothing else, capital appropriation placeholders. We know we're going to use some of the facilities tax to fund other projects. We know we're going to use road impact funds to fund other projects. But because the CIP prioritization isn't complete yet, we can't plug that in today. But we will set aside funds in an appropriate way to at least make sure that we don't have to then come back and await appropriations with a budget amendment to start the year. Once the CIP prioritization process is formally done, we can sort of hit the ground running. Does that make sense? Okay. The City Facilities Tax Fund was created in 1987 by a private act of the Tennessee General Assembly that allows the city to collect a privilege tax on new development to provide that on new development that in order that they provide their fair share of providing new public facilities that they have contributed to because they've come along. Such taxes may only be spent on police, fire, sanitation, and parks and recreations expenditures. And such expenses can only be spent on those expenses related to growth. We have historically used this fund for facility improvements that are new facilities, which is the $5.4 million you see on the screen right now. And then additional items such as new sanitation collection vehicles, because they are new, they're adds to the fleet, and we can use facility tax dollars for that. This $5.469 million is the balance of Fire Station 7 related expenses, assuming that we would be done with that project by the end of 2020. That's not the total, that project costs more than $5.46 million, but obviously we're incurring some of that expense right now as Brad is building his ski hill.
It won't stay a hill.
No.
Just a personal, Ann, do you remember what the cry was in '87 when we did the facilities tax? You want to kill growth.
Yeah, that was a good.
But the
that's a-
compare our
the kill
population in 87 to now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it did.
we remember.
Any other questions on facilities?
Oh, but, yeah, but again, you were saying that this could only be for new, in other words, no replacements.
That's
that
correct.
Can be paid.
No
for.
Not
replacements.
operations.
That's right,
Right.
that's right, exactly.
So there
And-
are a series of program enhancements. Totaling it up today in a prior meeting, we have we're nearly $14 million worth of program enhancements that you have seen in the last 3 months. Some of those are new adds to fleets, and certainly if they are police, fire, sanitation, and parks, we will seriously
right
look at
in here.
funding them out of facilities tax. Otherwise, this will be for capital projects. Note, you can use it for parks. So that,
It has over
will
the
be-
years been used for parks, a great amount of the time, maybe not in the last 5 or 10 years, but I can definitely remember a lot of it was used for parks.
so, and you see on the screen that we are forecasting, even after the completion of Fire Station 7, a healthy balance of nearly $12.7 million at the end of fiscal '20. Again, that $3 million figure is conservative based upon the revenue forecasts that Lynn Osland has helped develop. She has scrubbed every single permit that is in the pipeline and every single potential permitted development that has come for initial sort of scoping meetings, if you will. And that includes residential, that includes large PUDs, that includes smaller commercial, and we take what we would consider reasonable approach. There are some significant numbers, though, that are coming with some of these potential developments, and we are very conservative of what we're putting in here right now in terms of revenues. But it's a healthy increase over what we budgeted this year.
So what kind of happens, Michael sits down with Lynn and goes through that and has a list that's based on actual development in the pipeline, and then we all sit down and then we reduce it even more.
Right.
Just to kind of be conservative, somewhere between 25 and 50%, depending on what it is, just because sometimes timing isn't what you think and that sort of thing. So we do try to be pretty conservative, but there are some big numbers moving through the system.
But they may not, well, I guess maybe a year and how many months from now they might be done, but.
Yeah, you
but
don't
not as-
know for sure. Yeah, the
not as-
timing is always a little
That's right.
unsure.
And not always as many as we had looked at in the future, maybe even last year or the year before.
And obviously, this directly impacts the capital financing model that we present and update every 2 years, because one of the largest cash funding sources for the financing model are the funds that we're reviewing right now. But it's also why we try to take the 10-year horizon, because we do believe if they've come to us with the belief of building, that they will get done in a 10-year horizon.
Unless it's 2008
That's right.
and 9.
There's always exceptions. County Facilities Tax Fund is a relatively new special revenue fund, and that is used to account for our share of the county's adequate school facilities tax. 30% of the proceeds of this tax are distributed to incorporated cities within the county, and another 30% is divided pro rata among the incorporated cities based upon the population in the last decennial census, which means, of course, that the share will get redistributed in several years when we complete the next decennial census in 2020. We began collecting a share of the county facilities tax in 2012. This is one of the funds, as well as city facilities and several others that Mike keeps up with and presents in monthly reports. Just a little foreshadowing in a few minutes. Prior to fiscal 17, remember that these monies had been deposited within the capital projects fund, but we pulled it out into a standalone fund so you could better see collections. Revenues are about $1.3 million. This is conservative. It's comparable to what we budgeted this year. Right now, we look at revenue collections year to date. It's only $607,000. Again, it's highly dependent upon what's being built and when. You would think there would be a correlation between the city facilities tax and the county, but there really isn't when we look at that data historically. We will continue to look at that data to see if we can't improve our revenue forecasting in this regard. We have no expenditures planned at this point in time, but certainly we have projects. We have used this in the past for any project which is in or near a Williamson County facility, certainly Williamson County schools. And that's where we would continue to look at spending our share of county facilities tax.
Could I ask a question about, I noticed it said kind of 1.7 million estimated to be expended this year. That, I know one of the things we looked at was the sewer going out to the school.
Henpeck,
Yeah.
Henpeck area.
So that the 300,000 in 2018 was the contribution to the water management fund from the county facilities tax for that purpose. The $1,750,000 expenditure was added to other revenues to match the state grant for the 96 West Trail.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere, and I thought, what is this?
For the what, Mike?
The 96 West Trail,
Okay.
Yeah.
Connects some
which
schools.
connects schools
Connect-
We
to
took the
the
portion that
downtown.
ties
It
to
wouldn't
the two
necessarily be
schools
county
and
schools, but it would be
use
schools.
that.
It would be schools, right?
Okay.
Right.
Okay, thanks. I saw something about that, but I didn't catch what it was talking about. Thank you.
The Road Impact Fund is a special revenue fund created by Ordinance 88-13 and the proceeds of road impact fees and new development. We re-examined it in 2011. We examined it last year to include both arterial and collector roads. You will note that we are forecasting just above $10 million in collections for fiscal 2020. And I can tell you that of all of the funds we looked at in terms of being conservative, this is the one that we actually took the greatest degree of conservatism on. If a lot of these large developments come into the community, this number could be significantly higher. These are good problems to have. Your expenditures at this point in time are only debt service, which is about $2.7 million charged against the Road Impact Fund, and then $3 million for road impact offsets. Keep in mind that we collect the money first. If the developer provides for the service and they pay for it, then they are eligible to get a refund and have the offset credited back to them. We do that on a quarterly basis. We've been budgeting $2 to $3 million. This is done to add greater transparency because prior to budgeting an expense, it was a hit to revenue. So you never really saw the activity in that line item, and we wanted to try to bring that out and to yield more attention to it. Certainly road impact funds, both the collectors as well as arterials, we will look at for various road project funding moving forward.
Just one question. You know, we've talked about on our capital improvements, and when we did our priorities and everything, there has been discussion about pay-as-you-go on some of the things.
Right.
And I was just thinking, looks like that, would something like the Long Lane overpass be able to,
You certainly could use a portion of it, yeah.
I mean, because
That's part of what we'll look at is
Yeah.
where that makes sense. And one of the things I've talked to staff about is I like to spread out the use of the impact fees because they're paid from so many different areas of the community that we're getting elements of the road system that help a wider variety, wider cross-section of the community as opposed to just putting it into one project. Let's put it
Like
in
Carruthers.
multiple places where it makes sense, yeah. And so
Carruthers
we've put it into some other portions as we've completed some of those projects, and we'll look at, as we do these project-by-project strategies, that's something we will certainly look at. We always want to keep a healthy balance in there because the economy turns. We've got some debt.
Exactly.
We've got some debt obligations
Exactly.
that I think go before most of our times here, but we need to make sure we've got enough cushion to comfortably meet those obligations. But we are at a point where we can certainly look at helping some of the other high-priority projects.
well, and also, it's going to be really interesting whenever the 2020 census comes out to see. We certainly have some areas of the city that have grown much more than others, probably in the last 10 years. I bet there'll have to be, redrawing of the wards because I was thinking about
Yep.
what has happened in the last few years, you know, and I suspect that will come into play. I
Yeah,
remember 10 years ago
definitely.
that came into play
It was
too.
fairly minor 10 years ago. I think it may be a little different this time around, just because there's been significantly more growth in some
Certain
areas
areas,
compared
yeah.
to others, yeah.
Yes. And we know some
Especially
of them.
the
don't we?
southeast.
We know some of them, yes.
Fourth fund in this presentation is the Hotel Motel Tax Fund. The Hotel Motel Tax Fund is a special revenue fund used to account for the locally administered tax levied on occupancy of hotel and motel rooms in addition to the sales tax. Currently, the City of Franklin tax is 4% out of a maximum 5% that you are allowed under law. This has been used in the past to pay debt service in the Cool Springs Conference Center, as well as Harlansdale and various battlefield parks. Primarily, we have used these funds for tourism-related purposes. The budget includes 1% of the 4% tax based on collections from the previous calendar year to support the Williamson County Convention and Visitors Bureau. We are forecasting healthy growth in revenues and a slight decrease in expenditures. And again, you'll note the decrease in expenditures is a result of that we are not programming any capital in here yet. There are three things which are programmed in that budget: the contribution to the CVB, the payment still of about $1 million in debt service, and the fourth year of contributions for
Carter Hill.
Carter's Hill. That was $1.5 million that we divided over 7 years funding out of the Hotel Motel Fund. You'll notice that the 8% is significantly higher than what you heard at the beginning of this meeting regarding revenue growth in hotels nationwide and certainly RevPAR. That 8% is a baseline of a 5% growth in revenues year over year, which we have averaged historically. And we will take one final look at that to see if we want to keep it that high. But what you also will see in a lot of these departmental budgets is significant increases in interest income because of the balances in these funds. And I don't know if Christine or Mike would want to speak just briefly about sort of holistically why we're seeing those increases in earned interest.
Well, it's something Michael and I have discussed with our interest budgets is that, certainly when we saw rates rise, we earned pretty much nothing for a long, long time. And, a couple years ago, rates started to rise, but we had so much of our portfolio was locked in at very, very, very low rates. And we still have a portfolio, even with the interest, even with the increases, we're about 1.4%. It used to be much lower than 1%. So really, we're right now increasing budgets based off of actions in the last couple of years that we really had just such a low earning portfolio, and this is still reflective of fairly. I mean, they're still modest rates compared to what they were 15 years ago, but we are seeing increase. We are adjusting budgets to what's realistic, and certainly this year's actuals to date on interest earnings reflect that. I mean, most of our funds, we've recorded interest earnings much higher than we had budgets because for so many, when the economy got bad, we earned nothing, and we were earning, there were years we got 15, 20 basis points if we were lucky, and so we aren't seeing increases, really. Certainly we have reinvestments about every month, but we're locking in now 2-year rates that are around the 2%, and that's slowly brought up our portfolio.
On the forecast side, well, note that we try to keep this slide in here every year. We expect to still have significant capacity. The bars in red are those sort of committed expenses beginning with this year and then going out 2021, 22, 23. The bars in green are monies that would be available for other purposes, which we are designating various CIP projects that would, again, have a tourism or potential other aspect. Again, we've used this for parks, so this would be another funding source for that. And as Eric mentioned, we'll work through the funding strategy for 2020 and probably reserve a little bit of this fund as well for capital when it comes to appropriations, even if we have to wait a little bit longer to designate exactly where it will go.
Could I also say, though, unlike the facilities tax, which has specific, the parks, fire, and so on, everything, this hotel motel tax does not have any regulation on what it may be spent for. Absolutely none.
That is absolutely correct. Historically, the city has chosen to spend it on projects which could be, how do I phrase this, related back to
Very nice.
where the funds were generated from, i.e. tourism.
Well, but let me say, though, a lot of our hotel motel is also business related. People come in for business, and that I would love to know at some point what they think that the hotel and motel industry thinks, what percentage is really based on tourism or what percentage is actually business.
Would be very interesting.
That would be, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. But anyway, just.
The last and final fund is the In Lieu of Parkland or Parkland Dedication Fund. This was created in fiscal 2015 for the purposes of satisfying requirements of section 5.5.4 of the City of Franklin zoning ordinance. Funds can only be used for the acquisition or development of public parks, greenways, blueways, open space, and related facilities. We forecast a relatively level, slight increase in revenues. We have no planned expenses against it. Again, the only expenses that have ever been charged against this fund were for the purchase of Robinson Lake in fiscal 2018.
Comment, but this has a date where you must spend money that has been paid in. You have then another date that says it has to be spent.
7 years.
That's right. So we need to look and see where each of these has got has got that date, and we need to make absolute plans to have spent it, because otherwise we have to return it to the people that paid
So
it.
Parks does a wonderful job, Kim Lindsay, in keeping up with each receipt of Parkland dedication funds by quadrant, by date of receipt.
That's right.
And so that is our sort of master file for us being able to then prioritize first in, first out
Absolutely.
when it comes to those funds. And those will
And-
certainly be the
And
funds
Mike-
that we
and
target.
Mike Lowe is our comptroller.
Good.
He assigns he assigned that first expense to the oldest revenue source.
Sure.
And he's our accountant on the expenditure side, assigning that. So yes, ma'am, you're making a very good point that we
But-
are on a
but-
time clock.
That's right, but if they were recorded in fiscal year 2015, that means fiscal year 2022, they have got to be spent, not just allocated to something to be spent on. They have got to be spent by that time, and that's coming up.
It is. But as you saw,
We've got plenty of things to spend it on.
there's
Don't get
plenty
me
of
wrong.
parks
We've got plenty of
projects
things to
that
spend it on.
these
Like
can be
Lisa
spent
is
on.
Making sure, yeah.
But I'm just saying, though, we haven't spent, the only money that we spend is this one thing on Robinson Lake. And I mean, and that's $500,000 based on, we're expecting to have what, almost a little bit more than 9 million.
But purposely, we have not used these funds because we wanted to get through your CIP prioritization process. And then we will target, again, first in, first out by quadrant, because again, we have to do this by quadrant, where we can utilize those funds which have been accumulated to date and where.
Now, let me ask you, did we also get a commentary that said some of this could be used for all over the city projects?
You really need to keep it in the quadrants.
I
They
agree.
could be larger parks,
Mhm.
but you need to really stick to that quadrant guidance. there may be certain facilities that are on borders or close to where money's generated that we could look at some flexibility there, but we really want to be careful about the nexus. And so that's the guidance we're following, that it either sticks to those quadrants, or we can clearly make a connection between a contribution and a specific improvement.
I need to look back at the quadrants again, I guess.
In summary, the local economy continues to remain robust. We believe that there's good opportunity for revenue growth in each of these funds. Of course, they are heavily dependent upon when permits are pulled in development. Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, any additional questions, comments from anyone? Then, let's go to item 16, budget presentation, debt service fund. Christine, you have an opportunity now.
I do. I've got such great folks around me that I got to sit and listen. And there's nothing more exciting than talking about tax exempt bonds at the end of a very long afternoon. So I appreciate you even bearing with me, because this can be listening to bond math people talk about debt is not necessarily the most exciting topic, but for those of us who do this, it is. So wanted to use this. It's very important, and there has to be some of us who enjoy doing that, doesn't there? So
we're very thankful for those of you that enjoy that.
Well, we put together this presentation, and we're going to have to ask you to bear with me and use your imagination on a little bit of this, because we are within a week of taking bids for the new bond issue that the board authorized back in March. And the bond issue for 2019, of course, consists of new money bonds that will be spending those proceeds in the next 3 years, but it also has a pretty significant refinancing component. And so this bond issue will be taking bids next week on April 17th, next Wednesday. We will, by the close of that day, we'll have our fixed debt service costs on both of those series of bonds, and we'll be able to plug those numbers into the budget process. We'll be closing on that transaction May the 15th, but we'll have that information, be able to plug that in to the budget process. So we're going to show you the existing numbers, and I'm going to walk you through just a couple of really points in which we'll have changes as of next Wednesday, but we will have those exact numbers, and when our city administrator presents his budget, we will have those in what he presents to you. So the next slide shows you graphically our city debt service, and there's two things. You've seen this from us. You see this a couple of times a year, but I always point out that you see our maximum annual debt service is 2024, and we talk about that's going to be the high point. There's nothing that's changed in that, but certainly, as we've discussed, that'll probably be the year after our TIF district rolls off. And so, when we talk about what our needs are, with additional monies that come in, certainly that 2024 is always in Eric's and Michael's and Mike Lowe's minds, that we will have that 1 year step up in debt service, and then as you see, we step back down. So we of course also have the new sales tax monies coming in a couple of years as well, but the 2024 step up seems to match up pretty well with the TIF district expiration. The other thing one other item I'll point out is the last year of debt service on this schedule is 2037, with the new bond issue that will be closing May 15th. Our final maturity is 2039. We do 20-year bonds for our long-term projects, which in this bond issue are road projects. While the life of those roads will be much longer than 20 years, we do amortize that 20 years level debt service. So the next time you see this, it'll be out to 2039. But I will point out the two aspects. So that's the one aspect that will be changing with our new money bonds. The other aspect is on the refinancing. I wanted to give you a snapshot of where we are with rates right now. When we talked, of course, we came back to this committee last summer and gave you the background on the refinancing and let you be able to think on that until we came back I believe it was in February, and gave you our proposal. we're very fortunate that in the refinancing, when we first started looking at the refinancing, that we were looking at interest savings of about $100,000 a year for 10 years. That was certainly significant savings. That's after debt issuance costs were paid. That was real savings of interest. We also had some reductions in risk that we discussed, that how those 2009 bonds are actually taxable bonds that have tax credits, and there's lots of mechanics, and we get to depend on the federal government to appropriate that. And this is actually just pulling those in as just traditional fixed-rate tax-exempt debt issued by the city of Franklin. We've had about a 50 basis point benefit to us, because while certainly investment rates have not increased, they've actually are not as good, and certainly what when you're looking at some of your own investments, we've had the roller coasters, but tax-exempt rates have gone down. The other aspect of there actually has been a shortage of supply of new issuance of tax-exempt debt since that time. In fact, new issuances for tax-exempt debt are down 30% this year. So there's not as much debt out there as tax-exempt debt as there are people and investors that would like to invest in that. So actually this was as of last week, and of course we'll know for sure next Wednesday, we're looking at interest savings of $2.3 million over the 10-year period. So we're looking at a little over $200,000 a year of real interest savings. On a net present value basis, that's right about $2 million over the time period. But the true interest cost has now gone below 2%. We talked to you about 2.1, 2.2% back in even February. We're down at just under 1.9% on that refinancing. So when we lock that in next week, we'll be actually adjusting that, those interest costs downward, and that's something bond math people like me are really, we like that. So we'll be making adjustments on the interest savings. Right now, of course, we have the interest costs that we have, but when we do that refinancing, we get that refinancing locked in, we will be updating that for the budget. Also want to update you on, it's significant, and I'm just, of course, I'm so pleased how, that process, but we would have asked you if there had been savings there simply because of the risks associated with that bond issue. It was something that it was a very good thing to do at that time. It was a different time period. There was no way to really go out long term without using a federal program, but we were able to. This is a different setting, and we'll be able to pull that back in and be. And the other aspect is, but as finance people, we like certainty, and we'll be able to lock in those interest costs for the rest of the 10 years of that maturity. So we'll know that next week. On the new money piece of the bond issue, we're looking at a true interest cost of debt's gone below 3%. We're looking at 2.8% as of current market. That's actually, when you look at it, that will be adding for 2020. If last week's rates held for next week, we'd be looking at debt service. So we're looking at for the new money piece of adding $2.7 million for 2020 in principal and interest. And I want to point out, though, that we talked about, we structured the new money bond issues around the projects. That bond issue overall looks front-loaded in principal, because while we have the road projects going out 20 years, we have the fire apparatus 15, we have the major road resurfacing at 15, we have the sanitation facility is a shorter amortization. We also have the police vehicles that we need to do catch up on, and that's only on 4 years. So we'll start out at the highest. Our maximum annual debt service on this 2019 new money bonds happens in the first 4 years, and then we stair-step down because of that structure. So the $2.7 million estimated for 2020 debt service is the max annual debt service on that bond issue. And so we'll certainly be updating this committee in May. We'll have an item after Eric's budget presentation, but that gives you a flavor of where we're at. But and the city administrators updated you that we have had our bond ratings. Our AAA bond ratings have been assigned and reaffirmed on our old debt, and so we've had a successful process so far. But we're getting very close. In fact, I checked this afternoon to see because we have all of our offering documents out on the street, and we've got a lot of activity, and we've already got 2 bidders sign up, almost a week early, so I'm sure we'll certainly have a lot more as we get closer, but folks are starting to notice, and we'll look forward to a successful sale next week.
I'll add a couple things. Note in your detailed budgets for debt service, we'll update this obviously when we get the 2019 sale. On the first page, you have your debt management policy ratios updated for the last year of data. And these are the ratios that we look at that you've prescribed within the debt management policy for things to make sure that we stay within. So in terms of percentage of current bonded debt is percentage of value, full value of the community, direct debt of operating revenues less than or equal to 3 times, and then total governmental funds debt less than or equal to 25%.
Where is that? Because I got to this, and then that next thing was so bizarre, I couldn't, I didn't have time to really study it, but is it right there? Okay, so it's over on just the next?
Yeah, it should be the second attachment
Second,
under the
okay.
item.
As I say, I didn't have time to really go through it.
We did.
Oh,
Right.
God, tell me, this whole thing, but
The debt curve, as you see it on the screen, is provided within that detailed packet, as well as detailed schedules of every bond issue per fund.
Oh, I know what you mean. You mean the second thing, not after the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha.
So, and in addition to that, at the bottom of each fund, we have the actual debt service for each fund from the current year
Just didn't have a
throughout.
chance to read that.
And the next slide summarizes that expenses by debt service by fund, not including the water and sewer fund, which of course has debt service assigned to it as well. So we're going to, with this, we certainly have a lot of things going on in the debt world right now, but we will be cleaning those, pricing bonds, cleaning up all of our schedules, and I do, city administrator and I have talked, and then with the mayor, certainly during this rating process of what is going to be looking forward, with our debt, and we've have talked with this committee about we'll be looking at a bond issue for perhaps refinancing later this calendar year. We have another one of these recovery time period bonds that's eligible for refinancing in 2020. Very similar structure. It was a recovery bond program that has a federal subsidy, a taxable bond issue with a federal subsidy that becomes callable next year. So I believe this committee will be pretty busy with debt work for probably the next 12 months, but hopefully we will be able to, we certainly would like to be able to bring some recommendations that are good stories, and we certainly believe are good for our taxpayers. That's my conversation of bond math, and Mr. Chairman, unless you.
Yes, sir.
The numbers are coming.
Number 17. Monthly report.
Mr. Chairman, the one number I may highlight from the monthly reports is the number that Christine had previewed for us last month. And looking at the January local sales tax, it actually was a strong number, a strong increase over the previous January of 7.1%. And with that, that actually makes the year-to-date percentage increase to be 4.8% versus previously it being 4.5%.
So when do we get the next one?
Probably next week.
Soon?
Next week.
Yeah, I would think.
We
never know for sure.
With there being
soon enough.
With there being a holiday at the end of next week, if it, we'll see if we get it in before if we see it before the holiday. But and with the timing of Easter, we're now getting to the time of year where there's Easter sales, and when Easter moves from March to April, we have a little bit of seasonality there. So we'll take a look at those numbers as soon as we get them in. But of course, Easter is late this year, so we may have a little bit of oddities in spring numbers, but we're looking for February sales tax next, so that'll be a little we'll talk about Easter there around July 4th.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
Exactly.
Any other comments or questions?
Are we just gonna talk
Ann?
about are we just gonna talk about the sales tax?
Anything else you wanna?
You know, anything else you want to cover?
Let me see what I had here. Oh, a lot of the things like we were talking about the facilities tax, both of them and everything, things like that. They were kind of low, but again, and those are up to date, month by month,
Yes.
right? Mm-hmm. And road impact fees also, they were all, somewhat of concern, but because the building permits were down. So, that was my only other thing besides the local sales tax.
Any other comments or questions? Well, let's just see if we've got to the last thing on the agenda. Do we want to drag that out? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We will next meet on May 9th at 1 o'clock. That'll be your last 1 o'clock meeting.
Okay.
You will have received the Friday prior from me a recommended budget. And so on May 9th, you'll hear my full presentation of the recommended budget. And I'm sure we'll have a few other items we'll need to cover with you. But that will be our last meeting that starts at 1. And then we'd anticipate shifting back to 2 o'clock.
Okay.
As long as that's okay with the board.
No Saturday.
No Saturday. That's right. Yeah.
Unless
That
you
was
want to go in
nice.
a different direction.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Did I hear a motion?
Yes.
Motion is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
Yeah, there's 1,000 rooms this year.